so I'll call the meeting to order. It's 5:55 on Tuesday, March 10th, and this is our second meeting for our budget for 2020. We just had a closed session beforehand, and that's why we're running a little bit behind. That was under Section 292 Act of the Municipal Act, and we just have the rising report, which is to direct staff as
to proceed as directed in closed session. Correct.
Yes. Mover and seconder for that. Okay, Councillor McKinnon and Councillor Brody, all those in favor, opposed, and that's carried. Okay. So is there any declaration of clear interest or general interest thereof? Seeing none, so we have the second review of our budget, and everybody should have the new package in front of them. And happy, I will throw it over to you to highlight the changes and whatever you want to show us.
So the first item I'd like to highlight is a page that was circulated. It's a single page, and at the top it says assessment summary. And what I've done is shown you the assessment as the roll was returned, which is what we tax on, for 2019, followed by 2020. And you'll see that not all of the assessments are as they are presented. We do have what we call a weighted tax rate, where we have to apply tax ratios to go up and down. In summary, we did see an overall increase of just over 8% from 2019 to 2020. That's due to it being the last year of the assessment cycle, as well as we did see some growth over the last year. In comparison, if you wanted to not have any tax rate increase, the extra dollars that would be raised would be $283,000. So a no increase in the tax rate, which would mean we set them exactly as they were in 2019, we would raise $283,725. So that's just to bear in mind that that's the effect that we see. Also on your desks tonight was a 10-year capital forecast, and it just gives you an idea of what equipment we have and what needs to did I not give you one quote?
No, that's alright.
Here, I got lost. Sorry. It's a secret. No. So just to give you an idea of when equipment is up for replacement, last year council agreed to a 14-year turnover for the tandem trucks. It was previously 12 years, so that has extended the life of some of the vehicles, but you'll see there's a couple of years where we have back-to-back replacements, so hopefully we can work on getting a more smooth transition, so we don't have years where we have back-to-back large equipment, like we have a grader followed by 2 trucks. So it would be nice to get those smoothed out a little bit more and be able to have it in a better cycle than just when the actual due date is there. And the last one is the statement of reserves for 2019. You'll see the balance as of December 31st, 2019. This is unaudited, so the auditors will have a few more entries that they make following once we get all the information, especially for the Strathroy sewer capital. It does change. What is being proposed is included in the budget tonight, which is being transferred into the reserves of $58,500. And being proposed to be transferred out as a total of $833,000. That's just what staff is recommending. Council can change those numbers and increase them or decrease them as they see fit. But it does give you the totals in each one. So we'll refer back to that as we go through the sections of the budget where reserve transfers are affecting the budget. So, sorry.
Just a quick question. Neighborhood Watch hasn't been in operation for years. Could we put that someplace else by motion?
We entitled it Neighborhood Watch, and it's more there just for security purposes. So if there was something that came up that felt that council could spend it on, they could do that. So yes.
For example, safety lighting in the park or something, when we do the park, we could throw it there.
Yes.
So just further clarity, so those funds, the Neighborhood Watch in the former Metcalfe and the former Adelaide, they both disbanded and provided their funds to the township for keeping, and I don't think there's anything in the letter specifically what it's supposed to be used for or anything like that, so I think it'll be up to council. And then I would say that just my personal thoughts on this is that we would leave some funds in there just in case a group wanted to get up and going again in the municipality, and they can have their $500 startup fund or whatever it is. That's my feelings, but if we ever get to that point, then we can discuss that.
There are a few that are restricted on what we can do with them, but generally council has latitude in where they apply the reserves to. So as we open the package, you'll see that there is a revised summary, and that is just the total from each department as it comes through, the totals put together. So you'll see that we still have a levy increase over 2019 of over $1 million. So that I'm sure is going to be subject to change by council, because that would be a fair tax increase going forward. So I've tried to highlight any changes from the previous budget in orange or a yellowy color. I did miss a few, so some of them are not reflective of the right way. Let's see, what did we do? So there's no change in the general revenues. And I did not recopy every page that came with it, just the highlights of the first pages, because you do have that other information. Under the council, there was no change in the council proposed budget. We do need to have some approvals or some direction on the grants for 2020 and what council would like to do with those.
Deputy Hendricks?
My thoughts are, I think that they're all reasonably valid requests, and we've budgeted 2,000, and I think it leaves us a little bit of money if somebody comes up with something that would fit our criteria. So I'm fine with these particular requests. I think we do have to work on, if we're going to have a Chamber of Commerce award, somebody has to work on parameters for that. But
Did we ever find out how many people in the municipality, like how many businesses? Was it wondering how many?
There's not very many from that are listed specifically from Adelaide Metcalfe, but I know a lot of people use their services. So
Just for clarity, you said 2,000, budgeted is 20,000.
Or 20.
I knew what you meant.
oh, okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
And I think it's good to support the Optimist, because it is a community hall, and they've taken on that building, and who knows if they're going to have to come up with money for maintenance and repairs. So they're not a flush organization, I wouldn't think, for cash. So I think that's good to support them.
I don't see Middlesex County plowmen's on here. Were all of the previous donations given the form to submit?
yes, we send it out to everyone.
Okay. So they just didn't submit it. Okay.
Or in time.
Are there questions?
And even council does have a little bit of leeway with the 20,000, just in case there is some request that they didn't realize.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Yeah,
Can I do it?
yeah, this looks good.
Okay.
The next department is the administration department. We did increase the amount of interest that we earned. We did earn a considerable amount last year, and we're looking at doing better investing again this year, so hopefully we can see some additional revenue once that program gets up and running. There is some transfer to reserve. I should have highlighted the transfer reserve from the council is for the election purposes. We raise 1/4 of what we think the election is going to cost every year, so that it's not a huge amount in the last year. And the transfers to reserves in the administration department is for computer replacement, server and computer replacement. So we have some money for emergency purposes if a computer goes down, and we have that covered as well. The server does need replacement and upgrade from time to time as well.
Sorry, that's under administration?
And in administration, there's
But it's
$5,000 transfers to reserve.
It's near the
On the
bottom.
wrong page.
Next page.
It's down.
There you go.
There it is. Okay, thank you.
The other one was from reserves, so we're not
Oh, right.
proposing taking anything out of reserves.
Kathy, I was just wondering, the membership dues, last year, I think in our budget, we were gonna become members of the Public Sector Digest. Is that still in there? And did we contact them at all last year about?
We contacted them, they've never submitted any information to us to become members of them.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because they were, the reason why we wanted to become members was so then they can help out with grant applications and that type of thing.
yes.
Are they, is that still listed in there, or?
It was still listed in there, and we will be back in touch with them to see if they are interested in us becoming members of them. Administration office renovations. I have submitted some inquiries to Streets just for some clarity on what's going forward. We will need to move forward on some renovations. We need to prep some office space for some changes that are happening in the building services department. Is there any comment from council on what you see before you? I know that the basement isn't ideal the way it's laid out, and it will have to have some review on potentially whether we can move the washroom and get some more space for the council chambers itself, because that's quite cramped the way it is.
Councilor McCann?
I wondered, on the upper floor, A2, we have the existing CAO under 109 and the existing treasurer under 110.
Yes,
And
Spritz
then-
didn't know
That's the
who to
road
put
we
in
talked
there.
about.
Yes, they
Right.
didn't know who to label
No.
the offices for, so,
No,
yeah.
that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. We also have the existing fire official, and I wondered if the fire chief, why is he coming? Like, does he have to be here? To me, the treasurer would likely need more room than what's allowed there, and that looks like a very small office if the fire chief was to come over. But I guess it's comparable.
So if I may, that's where Jennifer is today. That's what she uses for her office. We're not necessarily telling people that's where they have to be. They just labeled those offices. They couldn't remember when they got back to the office whose was where, and people are subject to change because it doesn't make any sense to have certain people in their locations, so, yes.
So when you're looking at the
Fire chief.
floor plan, don't look at the labels as to what they are, just pretend that they're all just say office.
Yeah.
Yes.
Councilor Brody?
I guess we need to do something here ASAP. So I'm told, did Streets, is 300,000 a number they kind of threw?
That was based
Roughly, I mean,
on some figures that they gave me, a per square footage versus.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
which
Yes.
I'm good with that.
So would we
But what
get
I,
an RFP for the?
Oh, we'd have to go through a whole tender process.
Yeah,
and it would be
yeah.
absolutely, yes.
but I think what I'd like to see is just comments from existing staff, like existing CAO, do you need a bigger spot than that? Like, do you need, like, exactly what, that's all I'm looking
Yeah.
at. I think.
Yeah, it'll be
I
circulated.
think
this
I
fall.
like this. I
Okay.
do. I don't think we have any other choice but to move ahead on this, like, right away. So that would be the only thing I would, and I don't even know if we need to see that or not, or like, I don't care if you make one bigger for, whatever.
Mhm.
That, to me, that's a bit of a staff.
Well, it's always important to
Decision.
include the staff,
Yes.
because they're the ones, it's.
They're the ones that are
they're
paying
using
into
it.
it,
There's
right?
no
And-
point putting a desk here if they actually
No.
need it here, like, I mean, they should have input.
There's just a couple of changes before it goes to staff that I wanted to see.
Okay.
There's a couple of things that weren't shown that
Okay,
needed to
that's
be
what I-
shown,
yeah.
so
Perfect.
I wanted to make sure that they knew what the idea was for the common open area, so that they can kind of see like where everybody would be.
Yeah.
Director Hendricks?
What I don't see is, I see open office, but is that part line, is that a counter then?
No, that's that wall, and it'll be taken out.
Okay, so we don't have, that's a removed wall.
Yes.
So are we going to have like a service counter?
Right at the front, right across, if you
So-
look at the diagram, it will be, there is the dark, almost a full square.
Like the elevator?
That's the lift, the elevator, and to the
Right?
right of that, looking out towards Egremont, that's the counter.
Okay,
Perfect.
with an entrance to the entire office area on the left of that, so.
So that's one question, like, is this open office area, to me, is that a little big? Like, can you make this corner one bigger for a big CAO office or whatever? That,
Yeah. One of the
I think a
requests
little
was to have an
fine-tuning.
additional office area, like a meeting space, a small meeting space up here. That's one thing that's lacking in this whole thing, is just some spot,
okay.
instead of
So
everybody
meet
having
with
to
the
go
planner.
downstairs, so if you needed 2 or 3 people
To meet
for,
with the planner.
to meet with the planner, to meet with a CBO or a building official, you would have that opportunity somewhere on the main level as opposed to having to always go downstairs for that. So that is the one thing that did not come back in this design that they're designing for. And some open, potential for windows on the offices.
And these are movable petitions, are they, Kathy, or are
No,
these
they'll be
walls?
fixed walls.
Councilor Brody?
So is this something that we can direct staff to, even though the budget will be approved for another month or month and a half, like to move on this? Like if we're happy with $300,000 in the budget, like we better.
We'll be bringing back the plans as well as the estimated cost for you.
Okay.
Yes,
I
that's the
just
next
think
step.
we really need to get this.
That's the
moving.
next step, yes.
So that will be at the next meeting?
It won't be likely at the 16th, but it will be, we're pushing them to get them done as
Okay.
soon as possible.
So in the next month?
Within the, by April, yes.
Oh, okay, good.
So, Kathy, I agree, we need some kind of like common boardroom space upstairs. There was really no discussion of the downstairs. Is there any additional thoughts on that, Kathy, or do you want council to have some input, or?
If council has input, I would love it. One thing I do see is that when you push the washroom over and the universal, the wall there to go in behind, it does cramp the council availability, so there's less room for public attendance. So there's gotta be some way to move that, potentially move the washroom. I'm not sure if that's feasible, but if it could be moved over towards the kitchen area,
That's what okay.
and then that allows the entire space to be used for council chambers as opposed to being cut off by that washroom, and it will be able to use the entire floor area.
That was my question, capacity for the public.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's very limited there, so we
And
need
just
to do
maybe
something there.
reconfigure, like just a little tiny kitchen, they don't need, and then if your bathroom was down there, you got plumbing anyway, so that's what I was thinking.
Councilor Brody?
Is existing storage sufficient or is it excessive?
There's a lot of existing storage, but as we're moving things around, we're finding that we can use it. The existing storage, which is off of the waiting room, is actually a cement vault area, so we won't be able to. We like to keep all our historical stuff in there, so it's not subject to being lost or damaged. The other one, the large one, it could be converted to other options, but there isn't much options because there's no lighting and just the proximity. It can't be. It just doesn't make for anything better than that. So.
And just a comment on the council chambers, if we can make it a little bit, like, here's tonight we have 2 people. I mean, what will we have? 1 to 2 meetings where we really need something different or better, and I mean, we could maybe always use the fire hall office if we had to. I don't think we have to. Council chambers to me has always been a big waste of space, so let's not keep it a big waste of space. I mean, I don't think we have that many people in attendance all the time, right?
An additional comment to that is that when we're looking at this space, are we able to have it utilized so then, you push the desk to the way or whatever it is, or, however we're going to design it with whatever furniture it is, that it can actually be removed or whatever it is, so it can actually be rented out as a public meeting space. So make sure that there's access to washrooms, but have it so then you can actually lock, the doors leading to the rest of the building, so it can actually be rented out. I think that's another option because we're lacking that meeting space options in the municipality.
Yeah, and that wouldn't take much just to have those locked across that.
And then the other question I had, Kathy, is we've had discussions of the grading on the ramp that comes in the front of the building, and also the grading of the existing ramp that's internally downstairs. Are those going to be looked at for if the slope is right, and also the front entrance there, is there enough landing room out front of the front door?
Yes, Reed has reviewed. They've been asked to review both of those, and they did not come with the concerns with either of the entrances as they are today.
Yeah, we have to be compliant by the end of the year.
just, I am a little concerned
I'm
with this
concerned about
entrance.
the one downstairs that actually works.
Yeah, I'm concerned more of this front one, cause if you're in a wheelchair pushing
you
the
go
button
off the
and
side.
there's, not a lot of room. But,
You gotta be
The
quick,
experience is
you gotta be
fine.
quick.
yeah.
Well, the engineer will know the rules, so.
Yeah.
Should.
I guess,
Maybe just double check that if you're concerned, yeah.
I guess the only other person that we should get in contact with before we have the go-ahead is, Sam McFarland, our, accessibility coordinator from the county. Just to,
Just dial them in and then we're covered, yeah.
Yeah.
I have reached out to Sam to get some information before we started this, so I kinda
Okay.
knew what to look for before it came back, so
Perfect.
I will, send it to him for review as well.
excellent.
So, just another question then. So that right now is in our tax increase, correct?
Correct.
Is there anywhere out of reserves we can pull that out of?
Yes. Yes. You would have, the opportunity to take it out of capital purposes. A lot of that is unspecified, so it's not for a specific, item. There's also, would be that, building services, that was, in excess of building permits, so if you wanted to construe it as buildings. There's also some money in the modernization fund that we received last year. We received $308,000 from the province to proceed with some sort of modernization of something. We have, the $308,000, $25,000 was designated for the website redesign, and $50,000 was for the asset management program to be up, to get involved, and we have $241,000 left in the modernization grant, which we could utilize. There's also some accessibility grants that we're trying to get in on for the elevator to make it accessible, to try and get some accessibility grants. But the money was sent unconditionally for modernization and efficiencies. So if council sees fit as that part of the modernization and efficiencies, because we are going to a new model with the shared services, we could designate part of the unconditional grant towards the renovations as part of that.
Councilor Hendricks?
Does that 241 show up in the reserves sheet anywhere?
Not yet, no, that's a
Okay.
transfer that's going to have to happen,
Okay.
but it will, you'll be getting a request to have the transfers completed on Monday night at the council meeting.
So if we look at this project alone, then that's pretty much gonna almost cover where we still have the same amount in reserve, give or take, pretty close. I would think we should go into reserves for this project. I mean, the money's there. Is my feel.
Okay, any other thoughts?
Get her done.
So is that no as in you don't want to take it from reserves, or we do?
Well, I'd say take it from
Okay.
reserve, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Leo, sorry.
No, that's okay.
That's my, I don't know, maybe you're thinking something else.
So we want direction on that?
We can include
Or-
an amount, we can do that at the end if you
Okay.
like, and that staff will directed to review the efficiencies.
Okay. Councilor Brody?
Next question is just on our legal, that's kind of foreseeable number that we're putting in there. We're gonna have some legal expenses
Yes,
this year, so.
we know we're gonna have some, I can confirm with our solicitor just to ensure what, we haven't received any bills so far, so.
Well, that's okay,
It's just getting to
I'm
know.
happy with that number, I
Yes,
think.
I think it's a fair estimate
Okay.
at this point,
Yeah,
yes.
I think we need to have numbers in there, so.
The next department is, the fire department. So the change there is taking $250,000 out of the fire reserves. At the end of 2019, we had just over 500,000 in the reserve, so if we take $250,000 out of that to help fund the new fire rescue truck that's being purchased, there is, we don't have a firm number yet on the amount of the fire truck, and the report from the fire chief did indicate that it could be anywhere from 230 to 375. So we're budgeting to take out 250,000 from the fire reserve. That also leaves a nice starting point for the replacement, as you'll see on the capital forecast, that there are more fire trucks that are coming up in the future. So we will also be able to look at those and see if those need to be adjusted based on current use. I believe it's the tanker has a 25-year replacement on it, so it may need to be reviewed and maybe replaced a little bit sooner. If 25 years is a long time for a truck, so, and if we can start looking at it now, then we have a better chance of getting more money put aside, because there won't be enough left for the replacement, full replacement, so. The other change is, as we're taking money out of reserves to help fund the truck, we're not putting anything away this year for the fire truck, so that will start again next year into the fire reserves.
Any questions at all? You said the one is, so that 2003 rescue van, so was that always in the 2020 capital plan, or was that moved?
It was moved.
So
It
where,
was moved up, it was 2023, I believe.
So it just got bumped 3 years.
Yes. Twenty 2025. The rescue van was to be replaced in 2025. So it's been bumped up. So the life expectancy was 25 years, and it's not going to meet the 25 years.
so yeah, we need to, with all our vehicles in the roads department and the fire department, is to have a good look at when we actually think those are gonna be needing to be replaced, because,
Maybe these aren't realistic numbers, eh?
yeah, because if our lifespan is not up to date, then the plan is.
Is there a legal piece around those?
Yeah, go ahead.
There is for the frontline bumper, and it's 20 years.
Okay, so then,
But having said that, if it's still good in 20 years, it can be certified and the pump test done yearly, and then that can be extended to 25 years. So
oh, okay, so there is options.
in this tank,
You're good.
it's fine.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just for, but I think the problem with the rescue van is there's parts that you can't get. It's a gas. It's having trouble staying running. I can see why it's getting moved up compared to one that it's a good diesel truck in the 2010. It may last another 5 after, but the rescue really is not right now. They're having trouble. So
Okay.
So, to the chief then, you said that the pumper, or did you say the pumper or the tanker has to be looked at every year after 20 years?
The pumper.
Okay.
Well, actually, every truck,
Mm-hmm.
but a pumper, the maximum lifetime of it is 25 years. Whether it's in excellent shape or not, fire underwriters say 25 years, it's out the door. So it'll depend. 10 years from now, we'll have to have a look at it, but for the next 10 years, it's in service.
Okay. So I guess my question would be in the 2000 tanker. It's 20 years now. Do you expect that to be replaced in 2025, or would you expect it to be before that?
I would hope it's in good shape, and it doesn't go out on every call, so I expect it to last another 5 years.
Okay.
And it's under the,
Yeah. Perfect.
yeah, so if we do the rescue van now, we basically are good on pace for the fire department for another
Yes.
5.
Yes.
and
And
then
then
part
another-
money
and
each
another
year,
5
make
after
sure we
that,
pay
so.
for it, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
So there is an area where if council sees fit, we can take more out of the reserve from the fire equipment reserve and then just replace it on a even pace for the next 4 years.
Because you put down 250, but
250.
it could be more than that, right? You
It
said
could
it
be,
could be
yes.
as high as 375.
370, we're not sure what the cost of the truck is at this point,
Okay.
so.
So we've got 375 in the budget here, right?
Yes,
They can pull more if need be.
Then we can pull more from the reserve. I guess we just have to do the math on 5 more years and what we're putting back in.
Yep, that's
Basically.
exactly.
So,
So do we have,
So you
So-
put max here anyway, Kathy, haven't you?
Yeah.
375.
yes, as an expense, yes, because we wanna make sure that we're cognizant that the truck could cost 375,000. We're hoping that it doesn't come in at that, but it potentially could.
and we're putting 40 a year. in. So we might need to increase that transfer to reserve number and pull some more out of reserves this year.
Correct.
Exactly.
I'm
Or next year. Or more next year because we're taking 250 out.
and that's where we just need at that point, we need to know firm numbers and firm dates when these trucks have to be replaced, and then we can figure out, it's really a
yeah.
PSAC.
Exactly.
When,
That's Brody.
just
Yeah.
when would you have a firm number on that? What tank or what rescue you'd like or what? Would we have that before we finish this off, you think? Or?
Well, the only way to get firm numbers when we get send out RFPs, right?
Yes. The fire chief's working on the RFP now in anticipation that the budget will be approved for the 375.
Okay. I
And
guess
that we can get the,
So from the time you order it till you receive it, what's the timeline like?
Could
for
be a year.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Fire rescues and-
Fire has 250, it has 260, and 300 in 5 years. So we don't have to take out more money.
So
Unless
what's the
we-
recommendation on here? What is this 20-foot walking rescue? Is that what we're talking about here?
Yes,
the
that's the
base,
rescue.
right?
That's
Okay.
the sheet and metal issues.
Is the current truck worth anything?
There's probably a limited market for it, like where does it go?
Very
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one of the topic.
Would you need a motion to receive or to move ahead with this recommendation? Or you do that after the budget's all done? Yeah, so at least get the process going for 10 years.
I think the main thing is that we need, the direction of council, what actual amount we're putting in for the purchase price.
Okay.
Are we going 230 to 375, 300? Like, it's a large range, and I think if our chief can speak to what he would like to see, and kind of really the difference in that price range, so we actually have a better idea, because
It's a big
that's
swing.
a big gap. Yeah.
It is, so I can explain that if I may. And this just talking with sales reps from different manufacturers, and I was surprised too at the range. And some of it, to me, is too low, but then, speaking with the sales reps, we run into a couple things. There's regulations we have to go by, so there's NFPA standards and there's UL standards. For a rescue, UL doesn't matter quite so much.
What's UL stand for?
Underwriters.
Oh, liability, okay.
Yeah. And NFPA is, well, it's NFPA 1901, and that, every fire truck has to meet NFPA standards, NFPA 1901, and that's gross vehicle weight ratings and emergency lighting and you name it, it's all in there. so it'll comply with all that, so, but the odd thing is, there's two companies and they both happen to be in Quebec, and they're the ones that are, they had some stock trucks which are similar, not the same, exactly what we want, and they're on the low end price-wise. And then the ones that are on the high end are the bigger companies that build pumpers, tankers, everything. They're on the high end.
So is this as simple as somebody buying a Skoda out of Russia or a Mercedes from Germany? It's
No,
not that cut and dry?
no,
Okay.
it's,
Or is it is it like buying a car where you add stuff on and that's where the cost difference is?
no,
Not at all?
I think some of the cost difference is where they're built. Like one company, for instance, Brampton, so the wages in Brampton are a lot higher than they are in Trois-Rivières, Quebec, for instance.
Okay.
So that plays a role into it as well. We've looked at some trucks that were built by a company in Quebec, and we like what we saw. And then we've seen some that were built by some more local ones, like in Brampton, while the other one's in New Brunswick. But anyway, and the quality is the same, if not even better. So it's almost worthwhile the trip to Quebec and that.
Well, to explore it all, like, I mean, it's a lot of money to spend, so, you know, if you have to put you on a plane and spend $600 to find out what's the best deal and for quality and everything else, so I don't have a problem with that.
It might save $100,000,
Yeah.
and it's a 9-hour drive. So,
Mhm.
but the only way to know for sure is get the RFP finished, get it out there, and get bids back. Then you know for sure where we're at. You know, that I don't know any other way of getting a firm number.
Right. And then from there, decide what, like kind and quality of your pricing at that point.
You know?
So I guess my question goes to either both Cappy and our fire chief is that, so how soon can we get the RFP back, and when are we thinking we want to actually approve the budget? Because I would rather not have, because what I just heard from our fire chief is that they're actually very similar in quality, and we're sitting on $145,000 difference, and that's a huge number in our budget that we're trying to cut down. So I would rather have a firm number in our budget to know what we're doing. And then the other question is to council is, are we just going to take all the funds out of reserves or not? Because if we're just taking out of reserves, it doesn't really matter, but at the same time, it does.
Yeah.
But it's a big difference.
Like, I wonder if we just say like 250 and leave it at that, and that gives you a little wiggle room. If you're thinking the lower price ones exactly, I don't know, like, cause that is a lot, that's a lot of money just floating out there that we're budgeting for that we could use somewhere else.
Yeah. And what I just heard is that the quality is the same. That was my takeaway. Councillor Brody?
Well, I don't think 250 would be enough. I'd like to see that a little bit higher, for sure. But I think we take it out of the reserves, and then, like I said before, we just maybe we might increase that 40,000 reserve number just so we know we're in line for that next one in 5. And if we put in for 325, say, then cut it by 50,000, and we gain an extra 25,000, we can throw that back in the reserve as well. I think we need to keep our number
It has to be
realistic, right?
Does that include tax, or do you get tax back, or you don't pay tax because you're a municipality?
We pay HST, but we're able to claim a portion back,
Okay.
and then we can also do a review afterwards and look at PST and get some PST
Okay.
claim back.
But
I feel quite confident that we can get the truck what we need for 300,000.
Okay. So why don't we set it at that?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I mean, and if it comes in a little
Bring
bit
the
higher,
change
sure.
back.
Yeah.
Maybe.
and if we can start the process now or get it
Yep.
done, then that way if we get an actual firm number in the budget, that'd be even better. Yeah.
Does that sound good?
But
And the other question is from council for direction, that $300,000 that we're putting in there, is that the full amount coming out of reserves or only the portion?
I feel comfortable taking it from reserves as long as if we have to raise that 40,000 a little bit, just as long as we're on pace for that next 5-year buy. Right?
And about 269 of it.
Do you wanna do a resolution to proceed with the RFP for the truck now, so we can say it again?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay, so we need a motion then to proceed with the RFP for the rescue van. Yes. Okay. Deputy Mayor Hendricks and Councillor McKinnon, is there any further discussion? And that's all we need in the motion, that we're just gonna proceed?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, and that's carried.
The next department is the policing. There is no change in what we had proposed from February 20th. Same with the conservation area, there's no change. In the building inspection, you'll see a change. That's due to the strategic direction council has gone in effective March the 1st or March the 2nd. You'll see that there is some money coming out of the reserves to offset costs related to the change in the direction. And then there is a new proposed department that we're going to look after, and it's the Joint Building Services Department. The cost to Adelaide Metcalfe for 2020 is estimated to be $134,000. That's including a lot of capital purchases that have to be made, which are cell phones and laptops and mainly computer and everything, some legal and insurance fees that we know we'll have with setting up the new department, as well as some costs related to telephones, and we are sharing it with the other 2 municipalities, so we will be meeting shortly as treasurers to go over the budget and just make sure it's within the realm of what everyone is expecting. There's nothing budgeted for building permits to come in because it's all going to be pooled and shared. So there will be an estimated cost and a budget separate for the building services department.
So, sorry, I was thinking my head wrapped around it. So realistically, the joint building services one is a wash,
Correct.
and then the 6240 building inspection is for our portion.
No, 60/40 is what we've had from now until for the first 2 months of the year, and then the joint building services will be going forward after that. So when we go to do the shared agreement. So in the building inspection, there is some money built in there for the contracted purchase services, because we do have to have someone act as our CBO in the interim.
Okay.
And then, so that's pushing up slightly, but that will be gone, that'll be the last you'll see of that for building services. And then you'll see all the expenses flowing through as the joint building services department.
So that's in that number then, right?
That's
The
for
ones
the
we're
new
using right now.
department.
Okay, the ones we're using.
No,
right now.
it's under the old one.
Okay.
There's $10,000 budgeted in the 6240 department
Oh, here it is,
under
yeah.
contracted purchase services for getting us through. That's probably a little bit on the high side, but we never know how much is going to come in with building permits. But until the new services is in place, we keep all of our building permits until it becomes in effect. There's no change in the animal control budget. We are looking at the new DocuPet for the next year to see if it's of value to the township. No change in livestock, and there's no change in provincial offenses. The next one you'll see with yellow is a bylaw enforcement department. Clerk Turk and I met with an outside agency that provides bylaw enforcement services to municipalities. There will be a presentation for you on Monday at your council meeting. Jennifer's getting a report ready. we are looking at and securing services to look after bylaw enforcement for the municipality. Each municipality, even though we're sharing building services, we are all independently looking after our own bylaw enforcement at this point in time. Should that change in the future, then that will be something that will have to be negotiated and discussed amongst all the municipalities. And it is an independent contractor who provides bylaw services to municipalities.
Is there any questions on that one?
Good job.
Sorry, what you saying?
I said fun job.
Oh.
Fix, yeah.
And that's something we have to jump on kind of right away because there are pending.
Yes, that's why we're
Thanks.
having the, it's in your budget now, as well, we have some upcoming issues to deal with, so, we'll have a report on Monday for your review.
I want to know why her offenses income doesn't go up 5% every year.
The next department is the roadways. So this is where you're gonna see the biggest change in what's being proposed. So the first highlight, what I will highlight is there's $318,000 coming from reserves into the 2020 budget. And that's comprised, we'll see later on some more documentation, but that includes $133,000 that was raised in 2019 for sidewalks that wasn't spent, so we're carrying that over from 2019 into 2020 and using that to offset the cost of 2020 sidewalk construction. There's also $10,000 for the emergency signs that were not completed, were not purchased, so we like to get that set of trailers for the Napier garage to have them on hand. And there's also being proposed $175,000 towards the new tandem truck. And again, that's subject to change based on council's decisions tonight. There's no change in the basic operating portion of the budget. We're not proposing to send anything to reserves for the roads this year as well, just due to the amount of money that's being spent on the roads, unless there's a lot taken out this year. So, I guess Coulter and I kind of worked on this together, so I will let him speak to anything that he'd like to. But roads and facilities, at the last meeting, it was requested that a review be done of the facilities that we currently have. So there's just a brief summary of the Napier shop and the Adelaide shop, which just gives you a little bit of the current status, some of the things that are there, what we have, you know, what the shops look like, some of the requirements that would have to be, or not have to be done at each one, but some things that would be really nice to have at both. One of the big things is the Mac 1 bay in Napier. When they drive the truck inside, they have to detach the plow, so it takes time in and out to attach it and detach it, so that is one of the biggest issues with the Napier. As well, there is no place to store the grader, so it sits outside. Not that it can't withstand that, but it does make it harder on them year to year. The Adelaide shop has some of the similar issues. There's no winter storage for the grader. It can go inside, but it is rather tight, and it does mean that other equipment has to sit out. There's no bay for any of the pickups or the F450. And again, just some other small issues, the sand and salt shed in the future, if anything ever happens with the county not allowing us there. The travel times, we did some investigation. We picked a point which was the fire hall to what was the furthest points to the south and to the north. Just to give some idea in perfect temperatures what the commute distance is, just to kind of give a little perspective on how much time is taken going back and forth if you would like to. The last page is probably the most one to take in, is what would be an ideal new public works facility. It should be somewhere central in the township, 4 to 5 acres is the minimum. They'd be looking at a minimum of 8 bays to be built to accommodate all of the trucks, graders, and backhoes. A dedicated wash bay would be requested. Separated lunchroom, washrooms, parts room and sign storage area, the automatic doors, a sand and salt shed. If we move away further from the county availability, we have to look at building our own sand and salt shed, which may end us having to buy a loader to load the trucks because a backhoe would just be too slow. We would prefer the sewer system hookup over the septic system. We need potable water, a yard for storage area, a paved yard, fuel base, fence compound, and gas heating would likely be a requirement because heating it with any other elements may be cost prohibitive. And again, the barriers, as council knows, we do not own any land to accommodate a new garage. As well, the cost for constructions are not known at this time.
So let's say that before we have a, our public works manager can add to this, but I think that if council wants to discuss if we're relocating or anything realistically, that would be a property matter, and it's probably best not to be speaking about it in a public forum. So just putting that out there right now, that we're not going to be talking about locations, whether it's really where they are now or in a new location. Yeah, so if we want to do that, can we go into closed session later on, or
We
just?
don't have it marked on our agenda.
Okay, so I guess we'll add that on to March 16th. Okay, so Coulter.
Yeah, just to go over what Kathy said, we would, if we are looking at a new spot, we would need a loader, fill trucks in the back, we just haven't quite cut it. Yeah, I don't know, it's, the two shops are great, I said that, but looking forward, you know, we are gonna have to spend some money at some point updating the new shops, because we are growing and keeping vehicles like more snow plows because of our hard top roads, so I think it's something that council definitely has to consider.
Okay, and is council fine with that? We had a closed session talking about property matters? March 16th. You don't need a motion for that, you can just throw that in there? Perfect. Not to cut the discussion short, but
No,
that's just the way things have to happen.
I'm glad to see that you've beefed up the training budget, because we have to recognize we have new employees that need that, and it's important to invest in them, so I'm glad to see that.
So there is relatively little change in the general budget for the operating budget, I mean, for the roads department. When we get to capital, that's where you're going to see most of the impact. I will note that under hardtop maintenance, we did receive the price for the bonded wearing course for Catesville, and it was in the area of $230,000. So it has not been included at this point because of we have a lot of other stuff in there already, so whether it's something that council has on the radar to be completed, or if there's another project which should take precedence over that, that's something that needs to be discussed and reviewed.
Before we keep on
That
going,
was Catesville, you said?
That was Catesville, 230.
Can I speak to that? I believe it was 4, maybe 5 years ago, we did it's called the bonded wearing course on Catesville from Melbourne Road to Kettle Road, which is the dump road. It was kind of like a half road thing. So now the rest of the road, it is deteriorating. It does need something to bring it up to standards, because it's really nice on the one end and you hit and it's deteriorating. So I think we definitely got to look into finishing that off. Doing half roads, I'm not a big fan of, because stuff like this does happen. 4 or 5 years goes by, and I think we can keep up, but we don't. So work well. So I think that's something that we should definitely consider this year.
So that's 230,000? Yeah.
I see Scotchmare's been removed completely.
We haven't got to that.
we haven't got to I have a question still on this page.
I don't see anything else.
Under the hot asphalt, so the Melwood Drive, the 700 meters, is that going to be addressed in the site plan for Crooked Creek, and to recoup some of those costs through a site plan agreement?
Yes, we'll definitely try.
The 90,000.
Yes.
Okay. And I guess my second question to that, not a budget question, but where are we on getting the site plan?
Working.
Coming along.
Alright, so the next is the, capital portion of the budget. You'll see that almost every section of that has changed at some point. So, we'll start with the roads capital at $425,000. So, I don't know, do you want to?
Yeah, so again, we got to update our snowplow was in line for last year. And to get back on track here with our 10-year plan. We got to do that, and the coverall and sand salt storage engineering. That kind of goes hand in hand with the garages. We got to think about it in the long run here. So engineering for that is in there at $25,000. Again, I know it's hard to see right now, but when we're growing so much every year with our hard surface roads that we gotta think about it. We did take out the trackless sidewalk plow, and yes, the cover we took it out, but we did leave $25,000 in there for engineering for future.
Doesn't matter.
Do we have room at the Napier garage lot to do the improvements you've got listed here?
I can't really speak to that. I'm not 100% on lot size and whatnot. If we did, it would be tight.
Because I'm thinking you've got,
I would say no,
yeah,
but it would be tight if we were to do it.
Were you looking at the coverall with sand and salt? Is that what you're talking
well,
about, or
I'm
the-
looking at what's actually listed on the Napier, way back here,
Gotcha.
On the wish list.
on the wish list for Napier.
We'll talk about all that on Monday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, these are all the tight together.
So on this sidewalks, that's, we had rated them 1 to 7 or whatever, however many there were. So is that covering like 1, 2, and 3 on our rating?
That's not
Yeah.
here yet.
Yeah, we haven't quite got there yet.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this page that you're on, that's
Yeah.
kind of the cover page for the pages underneath.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
This might be my question. The coverall sand and salt storage engineering. Is that engineering on a building, or is that engineering for a specific location?
Either or, we'd have to determine what we were gonna do with that. That would be for the building, but
Okay. So I just want to make sure that if you want to have about engineering for something, it was for
that is for the building.
building.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Alright, I'll go ahead on the next page is a road study on the cold in place versus hot asphalt. I was asked last budget meeting to come up with some numbers on this. We've done the cold in place for the past, I want to say 5 to 7 years on all our rehab projects. Cold in place costs $95,000 per kilometer for the initial application. After that is $25,000 per kilometer every 5 to 7 years to surface coat it with tar and chip. We have been staying on track with that. It's usually around 5. I did a little comparison on a 7-kilometer stretch of road. The initial cost would be $665,000 for the cold in place. And then after 2 applications of tar and chipping, 6 and 12 years, your final price after 18 years is about just over $1 million. And then with the hot mix asphalt, it's around $125,000 per kilometer. On a 7-kilometer road, the initial cost is $875,000, and the lifespan of that road is estimated at 15 years, and that can change due to climate, traffic, and weather. Patching costs roughly stay the same for both methods. With cold in place after 5 years, you're constantly patching more spots. The hot asphalt requires very minimal patching the first 7 to 10 years, then regular patching for the remainder of its lifespan. In the wintertime, hot mix asphalt melts snow and ice at a faster rate because of the blacktop. We're saying to cut down on the amount of passes the snowplow makes in the wintertime. I think in looking at this whole study, we should definitely consider changing to the hot mix asphalt application after our total rehab projects. think we would benefit and save money in the long run. And I think, you know, it is a nicer road surface. I know, ratepayers would like it a lot better than tar and chip. I am meeting with Chris Strange from the county this week, and I will go over some numbers with him as well, because he's kind of an expert with hot mix. But I think that I'd like to move forward on this if everything goes well with Chris and he kind of agrees with our numbers. So yeah.
Jeff Mavericks?
My question has more to do with, got areas of the township that have, a lot of feed trucks, livestock trucks, grain trucks. Is one harder than the other? Because I noticed like the 22 highway doesn't rip up in the laneways the same way Cuddy Drive does when tanks go in and out.
Yeah, the hot mix is definitely a hardier surface. I think it's the way traffic and farm equipment and everything's going these days. Everything's bigger, heavier. I think we definitely got to consider going this route, especially roads like Mulberry, you know, School, Murphy, you know, Melwood, and even roads up here, like you said, when you're turning it, it does rip it up. So, and you're constantly throwing money at it every 6 years rather than the initial purchase or cost, and then you should be good for around 15 years. Sometimes you can get to 17 or 18, but.
And the road out here, that's actually being redone this year, if my memory serves me correct, from county budget. So if you look at the quality of that road right now, that's got to be at the end of the lifespan. So.
And it's still very, very good.
And when was it last done?
So probably.
Probably
15 years ago.
Okay, so that
Yeah.
speaks to it.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
So I just did some further calculations. So if you break it down per year, it's, if we continue doing the cold in place, that's for 1 kilometer for 1 year, it's $8,055 compared to if we went to with the hot mix asphalt, which is 1 kilometer per year, it's $8,333.
So not a whole lot different.
And then if you look at it as the whole 7 kilometers, then yeah, the difference is really $2,000. So 56,388 compared to 58,333 per year for that 7 kilometer stretch.
Yeah, it's a lot better application. And if we did go ahead with hot mix, and you know, we could piggyback with the county tenders, which then brings the cost down a lot more, because we would pay $125,000 a kilometer when the county's paying $90-95 per kilometer. So that's quite a difference.
And on top of it, it's also less of administration time, less of your time. You just have to throw the roads and the kilometers to probably Ryan, and then you go in there.
Alright. Moving on with the capital road construction. We have County Lane left in there, School Road, and Benning Road. I think those are 3 roads that I don't think we can pass up this year. They're getting very unsafe. Scotsmere Drive is on there. I know it's been in the works for some time.
15 years.
15 years. But just with some of the decisions made with sidewalks this year and all the new stuff, all our old hard surface roads are deteriorating, and I can honestly sit here and take some of those unsafe roads out of the budget. Really, that's pretty hard for me, anyways, to build a brand new road and leave. You know, there's 3 roads out there that need something ASAP.
No, that makes sense. And you gotta maintain what you got, right? Before you start.
Well, yeah,
adding more
I think
into-
we're finally coming full circle with.
Yeah.
You know, we were always building and moving forward with hard surface roads, but I don't know if we were quite thinking of the replacement and the cost of replacing it when moving forward. So something
And I
that
keep
I know
going
is-
back to the fact that we've got $4,000,003 in reserves, and every year Scotchmere Road is going up, higher the cost and higher the cost. So it would be nice to get it done and have a through road right from 80 Highway to London.
I can't think that's something that you guys need to talk about, because I can't fit it in the budget, but maybe there's other ways of going about it or whatnot, because it's hard to take out roads like School Road and Danny and whatnot to
And so
build a
leave
new,
them in,
leave them in.
yeah,
Okay.
and so
So-
put Scotchmere in as well, with the reserves.
Okay.
The people at the top is people over here. Not
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I'll do whatever.
So you were mentioning discussing a certain percentage with respect to the site plan for Crooked Creek, so how is that different from the Danning Road? I mean, you have to, if you're gonna apply rules, they have to be consistent. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, you're right.
If I could speak to that.
Mm-hmm.
With the Danning Road, it's not necessarily the heavy traffic that has deteriorated that road, it's
The
just,
heavy trucks.
it's all heavy trucks, it's all the culvert replacements and patches they put down the bottom of the dip.
Oh, so it's not even really the road then?
Well, the road is deteriorating, but I believe it's not, because of the,
Usage is the culvert,
It's
okay,
just-
so that's different.
it's been that way for a long years with some patch. And the trucks aren't necessarily tearing it apart.
Okay, that's good to know, no, that's good, that's good.
Just rush on that Denny Road is 80,000 and up to, because I know what it does, it humps and humps and humps, like,
Yeah, and it's,
the tire chip isn't coming apart, but the whole road would just bounce over, like,
so the 80,000 is, that is pulverizing it, which is tuning it all up. And then we put another lift of, this is with the cold in place, so the 3 inches of recycled asphalt, and then it would be tire chipped over top of that. So if we did go with the hot mix, then, it probably would up it to 100 or so, but I put it in there with the cold in place, because that's what we've always done, until we decide on other ways of going. But that 80,000 will get that done. Total rehab of tuning it up and laying a new surface.
but with the truck traffic, I mean, that is their business there, I mean, should we be doing the hot mix and doing it right, like I like the number that we just talked about on hot mix, I mean,
I think it's a no-brainer. It's almost the same cost.
Well,
Really.
especially if you bulk with the county, you're really only looking $10,000 difference at the end of the day.
do it right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then it's, as long as your culvert, if that's what's causing the problem, as long as those are
Well, yeah, they're
addressed, right? Like, so I don't really know what I'm talking about, I'm not a roads person, but yeah.
So just going back to the county comments, so the county already did their tenders, they're already approved, so we would be able to jump in for this year.
We would, okay.
Councilor Gannon?
So is it the base on Denning Road that,
not necessarily the base. The base is very is decent. It's just there's culverts down in this bottom of the bottom of the hill, and they've been patched 2 or 3 times, and they frost heave.
and then?
Over time, it's very rough down there, and a total pulverize and new surface would fix that problem for 15 years, 20 years.
So it's not like you could drop a little bit of gravel for a year and then get on the county tender next year?
No, it's a hard surface road, so you'd have to,
It
it would cost a
yeah.
lot more to just patch that again.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Sorry.
What we could do is, when you talk to Chris on Thursday, we could find out if there is anything in that area that's going on, and possibly be able to either extend their contract, or if we need to take it out for 2020 and get in the county contract for 2021 if there's something in the area. So that might be something worthwhile looking at, as opposed to rehabilitating it in 2020. Look at 2021 with the hot mix asphalt
Mm-hmm.
and using the county tender at that point.
I'm just, some of these things, we shouldn't delay much longer, so I mean, if we're gonna move ahead, yeah, we're gonna move ahead, but that's not till 2020, I don't think we should waste too much time on, if we know there's a problem on these couple of existing roads, we gotta fix them. So I don't think we should really delay again, cause it's just gonna cost us a patch for this year, so I think if this cost is gonna be a cost this year going forward. Can we make improvements for 21? Yeah, we can.
So, yeah, how much would it cost to patch it?
Probably $3,000.
And that would get us through safely for the year, or that's not the right solution?
Yeah, it'd get you through a year for sure. I mean, it's not ideal, but, that would get us through a year.
But then make it a for sure for the fall, like it would have to actually happen the next year.
Tiffany Hendricks?
I was just noticing that Scotchmere has 61 cars a day. How standard is that for the roads in that part of the township? I imagine because the other roads are paved, you're getting more traffic on them. Is
Yeah,
that,
there's a little bit more now. I mean, since we've paved walkers and whatnot, it has gone up. It's not like an eye opener, but it has gone up. And these numbers in here, one was from the 61 cars per day was yesterday morning from, I believe it was 9 in the morning till this morning at 9 in the morning. So that's a 24-hour span. And then 62 cars per day in 2018 was the average. In those 3 blocks of Scotchmere.
Again, because it's gravel.
That's for
So, taking what we said before about how we have to look at roads we've got done already. So you look at 61 car count on Scotchmere. What's the car count on Catesville that needs to be fixed?
It'd be a lot, cause you're having to come through from Lambton.
That's what I mean. And
Yeah.
that's back to a conversation of, are we gonna spend $1 million on 60 cars, or we better be spending $500,000 on 200 cars a day?
Yeah, so the traffic counts on Catesville, that chunk that is in the budget is 330 cars,
There you go.
374 cars, 427.
So we have more problems than Swords IEM than to worry about 60 cars.
I don't
And the thing is that this is the conversation we should have been having years ago to figure out exactly what roads we should be paving.
And Walker shouldn't have been the first, I'm sorry, it goes to 402 and that's it, Scotchmere. And I think the only reason it wasn't was because the road superintendent lived there and didn't wanna hear the flack about it. Sorry.
We'll go on to another question, comment.
yeah, my comment is it's sometimes not a bad idea. If I've done a lot of cross-country traveling in my former occupations, and a lot of townships, they would say if they were doing this here, they would do one block of one side road, and they'd offset them so that people aren't using their roads as highways. But for a local resident, they'll pick, say, this piece of C because it's got 6 houses on it, and then do that piece of school because it's got the school on it, and then they'll do that so that you don't get the side roads becoming highways. So
I think what we should do before we continue on with the whole capital stuff, we haven't made it all the way down, and then I think we need to have a discussion just in general to have some recommendations and
Yeah, so what about this Napier Bridge?
So Napier Bridge, there's a couple of pages on it here.
Okay,
Um,
like what's a Bailey Bridge?
it's a steel structure. And there's also the precast concrete box beam structure.
the report on that in this.
Yeah, the report was in the previous,
Yeah, it's in this one.
I didn't recirculate the pictures and everything, just,
Oh, okay,
um,
alright.
Yeah, so
just the basic
the
information.
one bridge is quite different price. 1.4 for the precast, and
Yeah,
I believe it was around 800 for the.
well, that's why I wondered what the 80,000s.
On the 80,000, I have been in touch with John Street, and I have met out there in the last few months. On one of the pages here, it just has a few things on fixing up the Napier Bridge to bring it up to the standards so that we can get a few more years out of it, and maybe apply for funding to put up a new bridge. I don't know as if we're at closing that bridge yet. Now the 80,000, that gives us a good buffer. That's definitely. I don't know if we use all of 80,000, but it is in there for a buffer to fix that bridge up and buy time to apply for funding, like I said. So.
How much time would that buy?
He didn't want to put a number on it for years because
Okay.
he doesn't know, but just in looking at it and talking with him, a couple years anyways. then you just keep inspecting the bridge every 6 months, with streets and myself, I would inspect it, probably once in between that, and then, you know, in time, another year goes by or something, we could consider, lowering the load limit. Again, just to buy us time to possibly apply for funding and, you know, in 2, 3, 4 years, whatever it takes, if we can't get it and council doesn't wanna go forward on putting it in, then sure, you know, looking at closing it, I think's honestly the next option, but.
Councilor Brody?
I don't like the idea of closed, I do like the idea of reducing the limit. We are being due diligent, you guys don't drive any kind of truck or
No, we don't
passenger
have
trucks
our-
across, right, so
Look at that.
I think we should just right away put load reduction signs, like basically for just car and pickup traffic. If we took that bridge out of there, I mean, that's not a good plan, I don't think at all. Reduce the limit, it may not stop something from going across that's too heavy, but it might deter it. And that's all it really needs to be right now is a car pickup truck bridge.
Sorry to correct myself, we do drive over an empty, but we have stopped since, I talked to the guys after John and I have gone through this, and now we are gonna be.
Yeah, we shouldn't
Just
just
receive
receive those going across, especially if we're going over the.
I don't, maybe it should be just a car bridge.
And what were the road counts on that?
I do have the road counts, 53 cars, February 24th. That was again a 24-hour period, and then March 5th we did another count, it was at 47.
And that was specifically going across the bridge.
Yes, the counters were right on both sides of the bridge, so you had to go across it.
So back to your original comment, to start shelling out $1.4 million for 47 cars, that's
For 50
hard,
cars,
hard conversation.
And I don't think, if it's just 40 cars a day, that bridge is gonna last for a while if we do a little maintenance on it. I mean, I can't see that, it's not gonna fall in, I mean.
Well, I think if the recommendation is to do the repairs, I think they should be done. I think we have a legal responsibility to, yeah.
Yeah, I lowered the limit too.
Yes, right away, actually.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree because I don't want to see. I don't think it'd be 80. I think we're looking at over $1 million for that bridge. And then closing the bridge, I know it would be it would affect some people, and it certainly would. But the other thing they have to realize is with the road count number, the 40 or 50, whatever it is, the way I look at that number is you divide it in half, because most people, if they're going to work, they come back the same way. So realistically, it's, you know, yes, it's the count is 50 or 40 or whatever it is, but realistically, it's 25 times, like 25 trips, round trips. So that's my that's the other thing, is that why replacing the bridge would be the last, in my opinion. So yeah, continue with the repairs until we can't do anything, and then we, in my opinion, go
We have to
option one.
maintain it.
Yeah, you have to maintain it.
maintain it, so.
Yeah.
I think it would last for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Let Kathy actually talk about sidewalk construction.
So the sidewalk construction,
So just a second.
yes, sorry.
Can we go back to then the tar and chipping part? So you said that it wouldn't be done until the bridge is
sorry.
done.
Oh, yes.
So that then begs the question then, yeah.
Yes, that brings up the question,
Yeah.
you know, if we're never thinking of replacing it, then sure, you know, tire and chip and Napier is fine, but I think we have to make a decision if we're ever gonna move forward on that. I wouldn't suggest tire and chipping Napier Road. You know, there will be heavy trucks and whatnot, cranes in there if we ever do replace it, so I think that's something that I
Have
need
to
some
wait for
direction
now.
on here before I make that decision.
Councilor
Yeah,
Brody?
just, you know, I think we all need to see a total road count before we need a whole better idea of every road before we make too many road decisions, I think.
Yep.
And that's pretty easy, we have those numbers, correct?
Oh yeah, we have numbers for sure.
So if I may, in addition to the remedial repairs, it's at 80,000. That's before the engineer's actually gone out and done what needs to be done as the remedial repairs. He says, yes, you can do something, but the minimum would be welding the one, the core. So it would be subject to, again, we'd have to get him out there ASAP to get some numbers, some firm numbers on what he estimates it would cost, like what, realistically, what needs to be done in remedial sense, like, before we would say 80,000 is enough or isn't enough, because they haven't done the actual review, they're reviewing it on the replacement, not necessarily on what could be fixed, so.
Okay, so where did that 80 come from? Just the dart against the wall? Or
That was a little bit of discussion with, John Spree through Coulter, and just knowing that, by the time you pressure wash it, and some experience I've had with some bridges, usually they end up costing more remediation work than what they estimate it, so. Because they don't know sometimes until they get under there and start,
well, when you
fixing
pressure
things.
wash it, things could go flying.
Things start,
right?
yes,
So,
what we should do is have Coulter, get a hold of John and do a mini report on the remedial work that's required, and then we'll have a better concept of what the cost will be.
okay, and then you'd RFP that.
Yes.
The only reason I brought back this with the charge before we jumped over it, and then the only other thing is that is the only section of urban area in the township that is not paved or tarn chipped. So that's why we need to seriously look at it no matter what, and whether it's next year or the year after. It's the only road that is defined in our official plan as a urban area that is still gravel.
I am in favor of hard surfacing Napier Road. We've talked about it for a few years now. I mean, I think it's the second or first most traveled gravel road we have, so I think I'd like to do it definitely. I need some way to go here on the bridge replacement.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next one, the sidewalks.
So, from the presentation from Driven Engineering at the last meeting, he presented several sections of sidewalks as well as different costs for them. So the top three would be the Napperton Northeast at 130,000, Pike Northeast at 85,000, and Center West at 210,000. Also included is some cost for engineering and supervision. I spoke with Alan today, and he has provided me with the cost for the engineering and supervision to have that done. That totals $460,000. Of that, $133,000 can be brought forward from reserves from 2019 to help offset the construction. There is the option that council may want to consider deferring the central west section of sidewalk until 2021. And that would, the only recommendation for that is if we started the Pike and Napperton area, we complete the loop there and then move on to the next section. If you're looking at ways to reduce the amount being raised this year, and then next year Center West would become the top of the list for 2021, followed by whatever the next recommendation is. He hasn't quite got finished the Second Street section, but he should have that done shortly, and that will be presented to council as well.
That's right.
So when I read this report over, I wasn't at the last budget meeting, but I kind of checkmarked what I thought was right, and Napperton Northeast was fine, was number one, Pike Northeast. Then I kind of skipped Center West, just like this, recommendation that maybe we defer it just for another. We're probably gonna have to do this in stages, but looking at this, if you're gonna do Napperton Northeast and Pike Northwest, you should, or Northeast, you should just do that whole, like Pike Southeast and Napperton Northwest.
This is around the block, right?
Yeah.
And
So
that's on the other side.
that's the other side, so we had to pick which, okay, so we were picking which one, alright, okay, yeah, alright, now I get you. So it's gonna be either one or the other, correct?
Well, it'd be nice to get that loop done first, and then we know that's done, and then, like, whoever is.
No. Yeah, okay, but there's Pike Southwest,
This is their suggested order.
not order, because
Well,
that's,
yeah,
that's on one side of the road or the other.
no, but this is the suggested way of doing it.
Yeah, but we're not gonna put sidewalks on both sides of one street,
Right,
No.
that's why these are one,
right?
and that's like the 10th most likely one that,
So
Right,
what
so-
section of road are you talking about?
So I'm talking, if we're gonna do that area,
Mhm.
Napperton northeast, Pike northeast, Pike southeast, Napperton northwest, made the most sense to me. Right, if you're gonna, that's all in that area, if you're gonna go start ripping, why not do it all in one shot?
With the cost.
I know, but then you gotta go back in another year in the same area,
Do you need-
because it's on both, like, you almost have to have a map in front of you.
Is this?
I'm talking about the whole team.
Yeah.
Napperton.
So my math was, if you did those four, that's 400,000. And then the center west was gonna be 210,000, so that's $660,000.
Okay, different Hendricks?
I think the center west is probably an area that really needs a sidewalk. I'm wondering, because they're doing all the, they're going to finish that road this year?
Yes.
Which
That
one?
would be wonderful. I'm wondering if doing sidewalks the same time the county's working there, that would be a hindrance, I would imagine. So that would be the only reason I would delay putting that off a year, because those are people walking on a pretty high traffic area too.
So, Center Road, that'll be the first paving job that the Walmsley brothers do. That's where they have to go. That's the first spot, so it'll be done in spring.
Because, yeah, praise the Lord, they put some paint on there again, because we couldn't, we spent the winter not knowing, people didn't know where they were driving.
When the weather's good, and it should be done very soon, they will be painted.
Oh, they're painted,
Okay, they're painted again
yeah.
this week?
But, Friday,
Okay, good.
but I think that's a fairly high priority area.
Well, if you walk down center, it's not an easy task.
The residents there are quite anxious to have some place to take their kids to the
Because the other
restaurant.
thing we have to consider too is then these have to be maintained. So for example, the Napperton Northeast and Pike Northeast, you know, if we can ask Roy or get some sort of.
Well, they're coming right by Strathmere.
Exactly, so
Then
just
it's
to
an
continue.
extension.
Right, so, and then same with Center West, you've got
It's
the
an
shared service
extension.
kind of thing, yeah. Whereas when we start getting these other ones in, we're gonna have to be on our own there.
Yeah, go ahead.
And to my mind, Napperton, like, should only be sidewalks on one side. And the same with Pike.
Yeah.
I think everybody agrees that.
Yeah, so 7, 8, 9, and 10 are, they're off, they're out, right? If I did my direction, correct?
7 is Pike.
So I'm-
And you're missing
Napperton-
one on there too, Mike, that I didn't bring my sheet with me, but there's also, Second Street or
Second
Second Street or one of those
Yes.
ones that they thought should be
Yeah.
in there somewhere.
So we're talking about Napkin on the north side, and we're talking about Pike on the
East side, yeah, so that it's the loop around the Healy subdivision.
Yeah.
Like just to
That
get it
was just-
started, because I think we can't afford to do it all at once, so if we can do this over a 5-year plan or something, I think that's reasonable. Because then you're gonna have to figure out how you're gonna clear and maintain these, because there's a standard that has to be enforced.
Well, my thought of maintaining, we need to talk to Strathroy to see if that's even, okay, we're gonna add 625 feet. How much will you charge us just to, our meters, just going up and finishing? We have to have that conversation with them. You know, and if it's, I mean, what they're gonna charge, maybe it's a little excessive per foot, but it'll be way cheaper than
Buying
Buying
equipment.
buying equipment and trying to do that. So that talk needs to happen, but, so we have there is no set, nothing in reserve now for the sidewalk. This is our total project.
Sidewalks have always been eliminated from previous budgets until 2019. Then the engineering study was done, and then this is the first year to be proposed for construction.
So I think the main discussion that we're going to be having tonight is really about the sidewalk construction and the capital construction for the roads and just the capital equipment and those types of things. That's really where we need a lot of direction.
Yeah.
Councilor Brody?
Well, as for sidewalks, I guess, yeah, if we're gonna do a 3-year or 4-year plan, we just have to decide where we start.
Well, we've got 133 we didn't use for the engineering, so that pretty well pays for Napperton Northeast. So then we only need another 88 to finish Pike there, like the north part.
And plus the engineering and supervision.
What were you saying about the 130?
Well, if Napperton Northeast is 130, we saved 133 in our budget for, we had 200,000 budgeted for the engineering, right? And it was 67,000. So that's it somewhere.
Okay, yeah, I see. And then where are
It's
those
in the
funds?
reserve,
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
yes. You go into reserve and then pulled out
Oh,
for
right,
this
you
year.
got it written there anyway,
Yes.
sorry.
And
Yeah, I
that's
thought it was
where,
pulled
and
out.
that's where I come back to, if
Yes.
we're gonna do Napperton and Pike, do you spend the money now and do the other two right there? I know it's a lot of money, but we have money in reserves, and you do that, and you're done with that whole section.
I think
Yeah, Deputy Hendricks?
my personal opinion is you can't do one side that's been asking and ignore the other side that's been asking even longer. So,
Who's been asking longer?
the Center Road people.
Oh, okay.
I would sooner do a little piece of each, and if it doesn't make sense to do center, like if it's just too much of a budget crunch, we can put that off 1 year, but I wouldn't wanna put it off longer.
Well, it's a safety piece too.
Yeah.
Like, are we gonna wait to have a kid killed and then we're gonna say we should have done
Yeah.
something? Right.
Yeah, Councilor Brody?
So center west, just give me, re-jog my memory exactly how far that
From
goes.
Superstore up to Charles, I think.
So
Mhm.
basically where Cuddy's fence pasture, like,
That
But
would
it's
be
his
the
past.
end
Is
of
it
it.
just
That'd be
going
the end
to,
of
it,
is
right?
it just going to Charles or
Just
is it
to
going in front of
Charles.
those, the second entrance? Okay.
That was, I think it was estimated just to go to Charles.
It's just to
Okay.
get started.
Yeah, just to
Just
Charles
to-
over.
Cause that, the reason the pricing is like, it's a tricky spot with the
yeah,
engineering,
well,
right?
farther is way trickier, we
Yeah,
may never be
yeah,
able
so, but this isn't as bad, like, I was expecting to be a whole lot more in
Yeah.
210, like,
Mhm.
I was very surprised when the engineer said, oh, no, it's not that bad, so.
So just so going forward, whenever there's a site plan that's approved along Center Road, or if there's any new subdivisions along, say, Second Street, those developers are going to be paying for it. We're not
Yeah.
we're not going to allow this to continue to happen.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very good.
So I'm hearing that it's a 2-year approach with the roads or with the sidewalks that we're talking about. That's kind of what I've gathered.
And then we'd still have another, if you made it a 3-year plan, there's another 200,000 for year 3. If we went with, Pike southeast and Napperton northwest, right? So if you looked at this as a 3-year plan, we're 200,000, basically $200,000.
Yeah.
And
So
the
do
second
Napton
street.
and Pike this year, and then next year do Center, cause then your county's out of there in case the weather's crazy and things take longer.
Yep.
After ripping the road up, and then after that,
Do the Hickory or second that section in year 3?
yeah, I don't know, but we should have a, like, what we should do is we should say, have it laid out, just like we did it for your fire
With
truck.
the,
Yeah.
When
with
we
the
have to
equipment.
replace them, let's put the roads on the schedule so we know what we're working for, how much we need, and how much we need to set aside.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, so in this budget right now, we'll have Napperton on the north side, the full section that we have engineered. Pike on the east side, the whole section that we've engineered,
Northeast.
Northeast.
not going south.
That's not what's priced
No,
in
that's
here.
not what.
Well, that's what
I was
not
asking.
what Mike's saying that.
That's
but
what I'm
we're
trying
not.
to say.
Right? Because if we've got 100, you said we have 133 left too?
So that basically covers off
The
to
northeast.
get a budget, yeah, because we budgeted 200 in the engineering, right, so that's basically paid for. So then you just need, 88,000,
And then it's 80,000 for Pike southeast.
so then you're up to 160, so, yeah, maybe we could do that, and then the following year, then you could do your, so in 2021, do your center, and then,
Instead of 200,000 for 3 years, we could make it 300,000 and try to do it in 2. Roughly.
because we're not, are we one Napperton Northwest? Napperton, okay, Napperton, I'm thinking Pike Northwest. Do we need to do Pike Northwest?
That's where all those houses are, you know, the
To
laneways
railroad.
with 3 houses on them.
Okay.
They're the
Yes.
long L-shaped lots. There's,
The flagship
they've
one.
Oh,
been,
is that right?
Yes.
Okay,
that's,
I can't
that's
picture it.
another aim,
okay.
that's probably a higher traffic road than Pike,
Yeah, so
Pike
But
south.
Napperton-
my
It
whole
should be
Pike
on one
area
side
adds up to
of the-
400,000. So if we have 133 in the reserve,
You're less
right,
than
you're
300.
270.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's why I'm saying if we took that 133 and do it all, we're about 270. Do that all in this year 1 and do center at 210 the next year. You got them done in 2 years.
Okay, so Kathy's gonna write on the whiteboard. She's gonna draw. So that's, I don't know what this is. Okay, I got it.
thank you.
This is the T.
Pike
Yeah.
and Napperton.
So then, Pike. Okay, so that's Napperton. Perfect, and then it's Pike. So
This would be Napperton, north, east.
Put the dollar amount above it too, if you don't mind.
So that's continuing on from the Seasons area all the way to the corner there at Pike and Napton. Perfect.
In there, and then we have Pike, northeast, 1,000, and that goes from here to
Is it
The
the
end.
last house?
the last house.
Yeah.
And that's
So
railroad
so it goes
track.
beyond.
No,
No.
that's north.
You're going north.
The railroad track.
Oh yeah, wait, sorry, yeah. No, okay.
So that goes beyond Healy and goes to
Oh,
that
goes
house
beyond it to that house.
Yes.
So this one will be Napperton,
northwest.
And Seasons is
North.
here.
Yes.
Yes.
this will be here,
There we go.
Napperton northwest is 110. And Pike north.
We don't care about that one. We want
No.
You
to.
don't wanna do
Yeah,
that one too?
we just need
We're not gonna do both sides of the
southeast.
road. Yeah.
Okay,
So
so that's
southeast
south,
is,
southeast.
80 grand or something.
Those are the 4 we wanted.
Yeah, so that's what we
There's
have to
the
talk about.
tracks, I believe that's what
Yes.
that's for. So this will go from here, and I believe it's to the very last house
There.
that's out here.
Perfect.
Yeah, just before the speed limit changes.
Okay.
So this will be what will be done. This section. And that's
So,
And then
that.
also the one
Oh, yeah.
gem.
so to me, now I got that picture in my mind. If you were gonna cut any costs, to me, you could leave this one for now.
Yeah,
If
I don't know
you-
how they're gonna do that, cause they're gonna lose a lot of lawn and they're gonna have some upset people. Cause there's not a whole lot of
On Pike south.
Pike South, yeah.
On
So
the other
maybe-
side, it's, I'm surprised it costs more on the other side because it's more lawn, but there must be more culverts and things.
There must be something there, yeah.
And then, like, this is high traffic, obviously, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
So the northeast and northwest makes sense. And
Yeah, so
like-
then that
You
comes
have
in
the
under a
traffic
$200,000
counts
budget to
Yeah,
do
I don't have
those,
it for Napperton. I
right?
don't
But
have it
some
for
people
Pike.
might
You have
walk
for
all the way.
Pike and then-
Yeah, it's like, it was close to 1,000 a day, I think.
Anymore, it's more than that.
Oh, it's like the 2000s, I think.
So, how about this? Another option is that why don't we? I like the idea of just doing the north side of Napperton and then north up on Pike, and then the south part we could probably leave it for now
That's
because
what I'm wondering.
the county most likely in the next 5 years is going to be redoing Pike.
Yeah.
So then, depending on how they reconstruct or whatever they do, then we could look at putting in the sidewalk going south.
Yeah, and the north side of Pike is probably a lot busier than the south.
Actually, the south side is busier.
Really?
Yeah, because
Yeah,
that's
Oh, the
people
down-
cut across here too.
To there, yeah.
500
But-
cars difference.
500 cars difference?
But if you do it here, those are established houses up to the subdivision where then they can loop around.
Yeah.
Exactly, that's what we've been saying.
Yeah, that's why we had that in there along the center.
So that's 100.
So we got the 130 covered in the reserve, so you're really
Yeah, so
looking
you're
at
basically-
100 and
195.
like almost
Yeah.
200,000, 190
And then plus the engineering costs.
plus the
Plus
Yeah.
so 2
engineering.
and change.
So, in north of Naples.
So just yeah, there. And then realistically, so then in 2021 we're looking at Center Road, and then 2022 we could be looking at the Second Street and Hickory area, and then I would say wait on the rest of Pike until the county
Figure out what
reconstructs
they're doing, yeah.
that.
And we'll probably know by then.
Yeah. Okay. So sidewalks were good. Everyone's happy.
As long as you get the Pike northeast and center at some point in the next 24 months, yes. Those are my only priorities based on
Pike.
ratepayer feedback.
What are you on with?
I'm talking about doing Napperton northeast
Mhm.
and the Center Road. I know it's not on there, but as long as in the next 24 months, those two get looked after.
Oh yeah,
They're the
yeah.
only
That's what I'm
ones
saying.
on
Is
the
that
Yeah.
next year
Yeah.
we have to have that in the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Coulter make that no.
Because
And
then
then
next year,
we
then
can
we'd
honestly
say
say
we're
to
doing-
taxpayers that they're gonna do that road along Center East, so, and if it got delayed at all, and then we're in there too, we just felt it was better to leave it.
Well, if you've got the county working there, we don't know
County's
what their
working
timeline
They're,
is.
the
So.
thing is that the counties they're not working. All it is the paving company is paving work. That's all.
Well, anyways.
Yeah.
It's still construction.
Yeah, let's just wait till that settles. And
Okay, so sidewalks we've dealt with. So let's move back to the
Yeah.
capital construction. So I think nobody's talking about County Lane. I think everybody's happy with that one.
Well, it's bad.
School Road. So I guess the question goes to what Councillor Clark was saying. Are we wanting to push these back a year, or like put me away in reserves and then push them back and then do the hot or the asphalt, or do we want to continue on with the tar and chipping, or do we want to have asphalt instead of tar and chip? Yep.
So back to reserve number, so right now sidewalks is gonna be a budget number, right, not a reserve number.
It will be in there, you have to make the motion to put it in there. It
So
wasn't
there's-
part of the budget last year, so there's a resolution that'll be passed on Monday night, so it will go in 2019 and transferred out in 2020.
I'm just looking at my reserve number and
Yeah.
chicken scratching here, so I'm still up around 4 million, minus this 133 that we're talking
Yeah,
for there.
but you have to,
right?
you have to pay attention to
Where it's coming from.
departments.
I know, but I'm just trying to look at a total number, I know that, but we're still at high threes in reserves, so. Now we gotta look at, how much do
We
we
already,
go on roads here? Yeah.
Kathy.
So the 143 is included in your reserve
It's
already.
already included.
It's already in there. I propose that, I'm anticipating that you're going to approve that on Monday night.
So can I cause trouble for a minute?
Sure.
So School Road, you're wanting to tar, is it tar and chip now and you're wanting to add to it, or is it to tar and chip a certain section, or what is it?
So School Road from Mullafair to 22 here, where the school is. It is tar and chip right now.
Okay,
And it's far gone. And it's just been left because it is far gone every year. I don't know how many years we can leave it.
And how is a lot of, if it's already tar and chip, I mean, it's not like you're asking to do it,
Well,
okay,
there's
it's a maintenance.
buses do
All the
take
buses.
that.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's
Okay. Just wanted to know.
So that's one where it's at the end of the lifespan school road. So that would be a perfect example of where we could start doing that asphalt.
Yes.
so hot asphalt would probably increase that number to what, 350 roughly.
Yes, roughly, depending on cost, but yeah, 350.
We should raise that, just have a more realistic number there, right?
Yeah.
370?
50.
Depending on cost. The traffic count on that road is 186 a day.
Oh, so that's significant.
Yeah.
And they're
It's
heavy
good.
buses, it's not like it's a little
It's-
Austin
yeah.
or Martin, okay.
Buses, and that would be like springtime, a day the buses were running, I'm
I can
assuming.
tell you the day.
It may not.
Well, other buses going to different schools, I mean, that's a feeder road.
Yes, that was in October.
Oh, so buses were running
Yeah, so
that
they'd be
day.
running, yeah, no strikes there.
So since Agremont's getting done, if a conversation we asked to the county to see if we can add that
Piggyback.
section on there.
Yes, I have talked to Ryan, and he's gonna try and get Kent and Feezy here on the same, added to their tender, so it would be something that we could definitely run by and see if we can do it.
We can try. Why
Yeah.
not?
Oh, if they're already here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we're increasing that one. We're going the wrong way, but that's okay. We're decreasing
Well,
it in the
we
long
gotta
run.
Well, we gotta be
Yeah.
realistic,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's,
So that we're happy with that, I think. So then we're going down to the Denning Road. I've heard we can do what's in the budget, look at the asphalt, or throw in a few $1,000s on patching and look at it next year. Which one?
I think we should patch it and then do it properly next year, like with the better surface,
I think it has to be done properly.
yeah.
So if that means patching it this year and shoving it to do it right
But then
next
do
year,
it properly.
it has to be done properly.
Yeah.
I don't think, yeah.
Well, it's a waste of money to just keep
Yeah.
doing the wrong thing, so.
Can't pay attention anymore.
It's rough. I
It's
tried
rough.
it.
I don't know what you just said.
I didn't hear that.
And I think you or Coulter, I don't know. Okay, so it looks like we're gonna remove that from the budget. And you can find
But you better
$3,000.
leave 3 there somewhere.
Can you find $3,000 in the rest of your budget somewhere?
Probably.
Perfect.
It can go to the hard surface maintenance,
Mhm.
because it's not a road construction project now, so it will move out of there, go to hard surface maintenance, and then be included in the 2021 under asphalt.
But, which is already there.
Or if you have to increase it by 3 or whatever, yeah. Okay.
Okay, and then the Napier Road, we'll leave that as the 0 because we don't really know what we're doing. We're gonna have to make a decision sometime. And then just $80,000 for the upkeep of the bridge. Everyone's happy?
Yeah, you have to maintain it, so either close it or maintain it. so.
Okay. Everyone's happy with the capital equipment, meaning the snow plow and the engineering for the sand and salt storage? Oh, sorry. Did I skip over your Scotch mirror?
Yes, you did.
Scotch mirror.
It says 0, there's
Sorry.
nothing to talk about.
Actually,
I'll help
Unless
you
you
out.
want, unless you want to put in a deal.
I will admit, Coulter didn't take it out, I told him I took it out. So, Coulter said, do what you can with it, and I said, it's gonna have to go, so.
I wanna help Eddie Ian out for a minute here.
Oh, thank you, Mike.
I don't get too excited. What is the cost of building that up? What did Walker's Road cost to build the whole thing up? We gotta start from there.
So it's around $1 million to totally reconstruct and then the following year you still have to hard surface it, which costs $700,000-800,000 depending if we go asphalt, it's 880 or whatever the following year. So I mean, it's
$2
$2
$2
million
million
project.
project.
Sorry, Lydia.
No, but you gotta know that.
Yeah,
Well, we might as well just let our reserves sit there.
no, I'm not saying that.
No,
I'm not saying that. I think they might just be better to go to better places.
Half that, like 1 block or 2 blocks.
It's around $350,000 to rebuild 1 block, but you still got a hard surface the following year. I don't love doing 1 block because
No,
you're still going to be a 3-year
yeah.
process if you do
I
1 and then
agree.
the 2 and then the hard surface the
And
following.
the residents
costs
are,
more.
the
Yeah, it's a
residents
mess.
are just
It's a mess.
inconvenienced the longer it takes.
And what about that culvert? That'll be expensive too, will it not? They're buying golds.
There is I don't know exactly the cost on that, but
So I think if we don't put it in the budget, and if the idea is to start looking at things on a traffic basis or whatever we're looking at, the communication has to go out to those residents on Scotchmere. They honestly are expecting this road to be paved.
Yes.
They have been told, so since I've been on council,
Year after year.
that it was, we're doing walkers, and then those 3 walks, we're doing walkers, these 3 walks, and then we're doing the Scotch, and honestly, they're expecting that road to be paved, and there needs to be some kind of communication if it's planned. I realize, I think the idea right now is to not put it in this budget. I don't know if the idea of the council is not to put it in a future budget either, but they are expecting that to be done.
Yeah, but that's what it's been all along, where you were gonna do walkers in Scotchmere and in Innedale, so, and then it'll just get farther down the road, right, so.
That's right.
I just have a hard time sitting here looking at the traffic count and then looking at a road like Caseville that I know is where it's gonna have to be redone at 300 and whatever you said. I think we really have to review the traffic study before we make any more direction on which roads we're going to. Cause I don't even know those numbers being this is my second budget, to be very honest. This is the first most talk I've heard about some traffic counts, to be very honest, so.
Well, we've never discussed it.
We've never really discussed it, right? So I mean, I think we need a review of that before we have much more direct, like.
Coulter?
it is nice to have numbers to make decisions. Like, you know, going east-west roads, we've always done that. I don't know, I get it. I know it's always been, you know, we always were gonna do it, but we're not gonna replace a $1 million bridge with the same amount of traffic, but we're gonna spend $2 million on Scotchmere. I don't know. It's tough. I do understand what you're getting at.
Well, and my feeling is by doing it, you're also bringing yourself to a level where you're doing less work on the road because you're not graveling it, you're not grading it, you're not brining it. So there's a point where it becomes more efficient to tar and chip than not to bring the cost down.
Just a question. What's the cost of grading that road for 1 year and topping up gravel every year? It wouldn't be 100,000.
You gotta think of winter maintenance too. I mean, you pave that road, you're going down that road every time it snows twice a day. I mean, right now, it snows 2 inches, you're not going down that road, so. I mean, to figure out numbers, it's not much different.
That's true. In the
It
winter,
might be
the
even
gravel
more.
roads are
There
best.
might be even more if we do hard service it. You know,
To maintain it,
yeah. I'm not trying to steer it away, I'm just giving
the
facts.
yeah.
Okay. I don't disagree that it shouldn't be taken out. Like I'm fine with having, you know, that's not going forward this year. I'm just saying that some communication needs to be out there because there is an expectation from the public that it was ever east-west road was going to be done and that next section of Scotchmere was going to be done. So
IFM.
Yeah.
Patty Ann can do the interview.
Council's decision.
Okay, so we're moving on from there, I think. Yep.
Back, we guess we never did talk about the truck totally, did we?
The tandem snowplow?
Or is that where you're going next?
Yep, that's the next one.
Okay. Like, I guess equipment wise in my head, I know they're saying here, well, it can only last 14 years, but I know a good piece of equipment, the difference between a really good piece of equipment and a poor one can be 5 or 10 years difference. So, but I do look at this here where we're gonna have a glut all of a sudden. Because you got one scheduled for 23 and one scheduled for 24. So you're looking at $1.2 million in the next 5 years for 3 trucks.
Again, that's like that because of all the hard servicing we've been doing. We had to keep a truck, so now we have to work it into the plan. So that's why that's like that.
So the previous council term, so the 2017 was replacing the 2005 because we only had 3 trucks before. We
Right.
kept on the 2005, so it's had an extra 2 years of life here.
And this grader is gone.
And we need 4?
We only have 1 grader now.
No, we have
no,
2.
no,
We have 2.
Tandem
Oh,
truck.
do we? Oh, it's
Yeah.
not even marked on there, so it's not set
Sure, I'm
for
talking about
replacement.
tandem truck.
4, we have 4 snowplow.
Yeah.
4 smokes.
So you
Oh,
need
snowplow
to
trucks?
4 to do
You
it, yeah,
definitely
okay,
need
okay.
What
Yeah,
am
we
I-
do not use the graders for pushing snow anymore, just
No, just for isolating in the wintertime.
Okay, the one's marked not to be replaced though.
so I guess my question to Calder is, how good a shape are these trucks in? Is this something that we can stagger this a little bit more? You know, I think we pushed this off, well, you said for 2 years now, correct? But we bought another truck, so
We added a 4th one up.
to me, like, I guess with the number of kilometers of roads we have, like, do we need to have 4 state-of-the-art trucks? Like, or is 3 state-of-the-art trucks and 1 older one that's in really good shape? Like, do we keep it for another 5 or 10 years? If it is, great. I mean, I'm just trying to get a little bit of better feel on 1.2 million in the next 4 years, I guess I'd say.
That's a fair question. To answer that, I don't know. I mean, the older truck is in decent shape, but the other 2 trucks that are upcoming, the 9 and the 10, I mean, they're not in the best of shape. Like, they're going downhill fast. It's just, I don't know if it's just the way they're building them or what. Like, it's the same guys maintaining them, the same guys driving them. It's just, if we keep that truck, like, those other 2 trucks need to be replaced.
So is that maybe what I'm getting at? Are we, just because we're looking at a date here, are we going to replace the wrong truck?
Yeah, like I don't know. It's a great truck, but like, in 2 months I can't, like, what if that thing, what if the transmission goes random? It's a great question. I do that.
How
It's a
many
good truck.
clicks
I'd like to
would
keep it, but I don't. Just going by years.
How many
What's that?
clicks would they have on them?
They're around. That one's got 200 and some odd.
Okay, so you do pile it on, okay.
Which one's the Mac 3?
Mac
205?
Mac 3 is the 10.
The 10? Is that the one that we've been doing most of the repairs on?
Mac 2 and 3 have been
Quite a few repairs.
lots of
done.
repairs. And they're the newer trucks, the newer diesel trucks.
And they're
They
more,
come with more regen and all the fancy stuff, right? So that's,
More breakdown.
yeah. So
And
to
more
Rudy's question,
expensive.
it's a good question because a lot of older diesel vehicles are
running
better
a
than
lot
newer
better
diesel
than,
vehicles.
than some of the new ones.
Mhm.
And I'm okay to keep running that truck. It just, if I don't know what. if something
I
happens
just
in
know
2
with,
years.
with other guys with trucks, like, they're all wishing they had the older ones
Mhm.
because the newer ones are giving them troubles. So I'm just wondering if
So
that
that's
old
your
05
point,
is
replace
in
the wrong
great
one.
shape. Like, maybe we're. I'm not saying we won't budget to get another new one, but maybe we're not looking at the right one here. I don't know. I guess I haven't really looked at it myself either, but I'm looking for a little.
Yeah, the 05 was always kind of in the works. That's kind of why I have it in there for me to say let's keep it, you know, I think it's actually a good idea. I really do. And then, you know, in summertime we're not always running 4 trucks every time we're going. So maybe that older truck, that could be the truck that we, you know, leave back in the shop that day and just kind of use it when need be. Because I mean, they still get a lot of kilometers, but.
Go ahead.
In my mind, if I know people hate to see big reserves, although they leave a cushion, but if you've got a truck that's running well, why don't you just leave the money in the reserve so that if something does go on it, then you can replace it. Like, to me, if you've got something that's running really well and it's still cheaper to run it than to replace it, then I mean, you can always change, you can take the money out of the reserves later if you need to, but
Like, I don't think we're at risk of right now saying that truck's gonna not run, kind of like the fire rescue one. Like, we know we're having troubles with it or whatever. That's but I'm a little leery because I don't want this to compound on us, right? And I don't.
Or you need 2 in a year, you know.
Right? And but
well, and that's why you build your reserves, right?
I think, even if we do order a truck, it does take like over a year, you know. So even if we do order one this year, we're still gonna have to run that 05 Mac next winter. So it's not like we're getting it next month. Like it'll be next May or June by the time we get that snowplow, if we do order it.
right.
So realistically, if we delay this by a year, we're actually delaying it by
2 years.
Yes.
Okay.
So.
Well, or we agree we could take it out of the 20 budget, agree to purchase one, but realistically, it's not going to even get paid for until 21 budget. Technically.
no, we would.
We've
budget
incurred
it.
the expense, so we've
Oh, you
made the
incurred the expense
obligation,
again,
so
okay,
we would
okay.
still incur the expense in 2020. Yeah.
Now, when you go ahead and do the tender process for this, I'm assuming right now our 4 trucks are the same make.
Yes.
Is there going to be any serious look at changing the make of the truck just to see if we're purchasing wrong?
I don't think so, just from talking to the municipalities,
Okay.
with the problems they have as well. And, you know, it's great, there's lots of times where we have extra parts that do go on the other truck as well. I know last winter we ran into the same problem.
Mm-hmm.
Something went down, borrowed something from the other truck, kept going, you know, we're back on the road in half an hour rather than. So I like staying with the same make. There is one truck that has Tenco snowplow equipment on it and everything else is Viking.
Mm-hmm.
I would go back to Viking because the Tenco stuff we are having issues with, and that is on the 2010 Mac.
Mm-hmm.
And that truck, if I were to pick another truck to replace, I would replace that one over the other 3. If we are keeping the 05, that 05 is a good truck.
Because that's not slated to be replaced till 2024, that
Mhm.
10. So maybe bump that one up or something.
And it might be worth more too to, you know, to sell at an auction or whatever than the 05 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not, I don't know. Yeah.
So what?
I'm not against buying a new truck. I just kind of wanted to just get a better feel about it.
Well, it's good discussion, I mean, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So is there any more information that we need?
There is no. I'm sure there's no trade-in value on.
I think in the past we've brought in auctions, if I'm not mistaken.
Up to Sharon County.
I believe so. And I couldn't tell you what we've gotten for other ones, you know.
Like, is that something a quick ask if a 2010 is worth $100,000?
It's not a bad ask. I think the old truck is probably anywhere between 50 and 75, you'd think. So,
Oh, really?
you know, you might get more for it than 10. I think it's a definitely a fair conversation.
Could we get maybe just make a couple phone calls and
For sure. I could call it around,
Maybe
maybe
see
get a
what-
ballpark.
We don't have
Cause
to
maybe
decide
that's,
this one,
maybe
uh,
that's what we should be doing, is getting rid of that one and getting one sooner.
Or it may be just like every other appliance we buy, the older they are, the
The
better they're made.
they are.
Well, that's what I'm working.
I think no matter what, we're gonna be buying probably 3 trucks in the next 5 years. No matter what order we trade them in at.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we do have a pretty high reserve because we
So maybe
know
we should,
that was coming.
just stay on pace and.
Mhm.
What reserve are you looking at?
Is this not coming out of the capital, which reserve account is this coming?
Capital purposes.
Capital purposes, that's what I thought.
Okay.
That's the one that's at 935.
So right now, you got this coming out of reserve then, that one? Okay.
Do you have the
Just the 175, not the entire purchase.
Mm-hmm.
175.
oh just for okay.
That's on the sheet.
Oh, okay. And then the rest is in the budget.
Is there anything else that we need to really look at? Because I think at a certain point of this becoming, it'll come down to how much money we want to take out of reserves. Is there any other things in the roads department that we want to further discuss?
Well, I think until we see a little more road count for another year, I don't think so right now. There isn't anything else that's.
So are we wanting Coulter to investigate the 2010 to find out what we could get, if we wanted to kick it out earlier and get something new?
Sure.
Just to see what that would be,
Well, I
because
mean, a
maybe.
salesman comes out to look at stuff all the time, and there wouldn't be any.
I'm just thinking it might be worth the conversation, especially if you're not happy with that one and it's not performing properly.
Yeah, it's
Now that we've
Definitely fair enough.
publicly stated it's not our favorite truck, we'll try and get a good price for it.
If somebody from the sales department or whatever is watching beyond 2.5 hours, they're doing well. And if you're watching at home, thank you for watching. Okay, yeah, if Coulter didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the other one would be the Catesville. We're wanting to add in that $230,000 in there for the bonded wear application.
Yeah, I think that needs to be done.
I think that's it for really the main discussion on.
That's just to the Kerwood Road though, right?
Yeah.
Down to Kerwood. So what's on the other side of that? That's a whole other problem?
We target tipped it last year,
Okay, okay.
but
That's all.
yeah, it'll be in the works.
That's okay, alright.
Okay.
That road has a lot of trees on it, doesn't it?
Yeah, that road,
And lots of
got
trucks.
pulverized, but
Okay, so that's the main stuff in there, and then we'll have that discussion on properties on the 16th, which will then be able to address some of the facility repairs and that type of thing. So we're going to move along to the highway one. Okay.
I have not received the capital improvement information from Strathroy yet, so I'm still waiting for that. Kerwood wastewater, there's no change from the one on February 20th. Waste collection, I've added in an estimate for the half a year collection of the new waste containers. Under the landfill disposal, there is no change there. Recycling, there's no change.
Landfill disposal.
Yeah, back to landfill. So you say you don't have any changes here, but were we not talking about needing to do a couple things that?
So no changes since the last.
Since the last budget.
Okay.
So it's already incorporated, there's an information package there, for the survey of the school road landfill, washroom facility rental for the school road landfill, and some sort of office structure for there as well.
Okay.
And
Sorry.
then some scheduled routine costs to have the covers done on a required basis. some Kellum road closure, Kellum Road, that's not right, yeah. The landfill closure costs, because we will have some cost to clean it up and level it and everything. And then there's potential for a new cell and some burn work at the school road landfill. And that's incorporated in the budget already.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
That's correct.
so I was at the landfill on Saturday, and it actually would be nice to have a similar, well, not similar, but some sort of a booth of sorts that you pull up, you're told where to go, they look at what you got, and they give you your receipt right away, so that I'm not having to email the office 6 months later and ask for a receipt. And then, to be quite frank, it would be my word against somebody else's. I could make up what I told you I paid, type of thing. So I think it's streamlined, take something out of the office. It doesn't need to, we don't need to make more work when the person's already there. So.
You need to do that though, at a booth at the front, you need another person almost.
Well, we were
We're
talking
talking
about
about
that, having
Yeah,
two
because
people.
you can't have.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and the other thing which we talked about before is, you know, if I'm in Thornbury and I go to Blue Mountain landfill, the first thing she asks is, what's your property address? She doesn't ask anymore because she knows me, but
Yeah.
at first it was like, that's not on your driver's license, turn the truck around. So then I had to bring the tax bill. So certain places are pretty sticky about it, because the taxpayers are the one paying for the garbage, right? So we shouldn't be giving it to free for other people. So, and there's all kinds of stuff on Saturday, and they're like recyclable plastic pails, shouldn't even have been in there. So anyway, that's all I have to say about that.
Cemeteries and trees, there's no change. Parks and Recreation. We did receive the update from Deputy Mayor Hendricks from the group meeting, and that's been forwarded to Streets for review, as well as we received a preliminary drawing as well, and that's been forwarded on to Streets. And looking at the reserves, we do, at the end of 2019, we had $239,000 in reserves for recreation purposes. Withdrawing $200,000 to offset the cost of the building, and also proposed with the building would be to put up some fencing along the length of the ball field to the end of the existing cement pad, safety fencing, which is about 10 feet tall. That's just to make sure that no balls or anything come over where the people are sitting. It's becoming standard in the facilities area that you make sure that everything's covered over, as well as to make player benches out of fencing as opposed to having the cement block and have a solid roof. Only taking out 200,000 leaves just under 40,000 in the reserves to do lighting and other park improvements in 2021.
Yeah, I was gonna
So
say,
that the lighting would be looked after, we'll get the building, get the washrooms going, and then look at lighting once the
back
washrooms are
fences
there.
on the ball line, they'll need to replace.
Yes, yeah, that includes all the fencing, the safety fencing, as well as the backstop, because it's pulling up in lots of places, so.
So I'd like to try to see if we can get this building going for fall
For fall of 2020, yes.
of 2020,
Yes.
if we can here.
Okay, is there any questions at all? Okay.
Planning and zoning, there's been no change from the original one. Drain maintenance, there's no change from February 2020, and same with tile drainage.
Okay. So. Is there anything that we skipped over that he wants to address or talk about? Discussion? Brody?
So, since I'm only 1 year into this, I do believe our reserves are healthy, which is fantastic. But should we really be looking at spending a little bit of it? I mean, how many years have we been $4 million in reserves?
Ever since I've been on council.
Right? I mean,
Hasn't been growing.
to get grant healthy. But I guess I'm thinking about, I want to see what comes back and what we've approved so far, but I'm not scared of looking at a project to spend a little bit. I'm not saying get rid of it all, by no means, but I mean, if you spend $1 million somewhere on something, get some roads done ahead or whatever it is, you're still sitting with a very comfortable $3 million in reserves. I'm just wondering if we should be looking at something a little more maybe.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there a benchmark or a rule of thumb? I don't know the answer to this as to what your reserve should be. Like, what's the formula?
There is no formula. It's
Oh, so
whatever,
it's not-
whatever a municipality is comfortable with having in there.
So you don't look at your tax revenue and your 3-year average expenses, and there's no formula like that?
There's
It's
no,
just
no.
that- Okay.
Yes. So to
Yeah.
Councillor Brody's point, there is a lot of reserves, but a lot of them are earmarked for specific projects. So things that are for like Highway 81 sewer operations is specifically for the sewers on Highway 81. It's been raised through that. So there's not a lot of latitude to spend there. The water and sewer purposes, again, that's been raised to offset future costs of 81 highway and other water lines. So there's not a lot there. The landfill restoration, we will need that to upkeep. So some of these are very specific, so we're not able to just take them out and use them for other purposes. We could borrow against them, but we would have to pay them back in a similar manner that you take out a loan somewhere.
So there's probably half of the reserves that are really,
So you'd be looking at,
really want to touch.
after everything that we have there, we would have about 900,000 for capital purposes. The building services is specific to cover off from the building department. It was raised through building permit fee, so it has to stay in some realm of building. The road projects, again, the 681,000 is up for within the road department. The fire equipment is specifically for the fire, it's been raised for that purpose, and the recreation is for recreation. So the rest of them are pretty specific after that. Like the other ones have a little there's freedom for council to spend on what they see fit within that department. But we can always borrow that money against it, and pay it back over time. We can do that kind of, a lot of municipalities do that as well, self-fund, take it on, spend some capital on your projects, and then every year designate,
put it back
$200,000 or $300,000 back into your reserves as a way of borrowing and self-funding without having to go to outside sources.
John Roberts?
Yeah, and I agree, they look really high when you throw them all together, but they do help even out so that we don't have to, okay, we need to buy 2 trucks in 5 years, we don't have to raise the taxes for 2 years, we can even it out that way. And I think in the years I've been here, it has it's stayed close to the same amount in total, but the different amounts have moved around as we've had to, buy a fire truck 1 year and something else another year, and so
For the meeting, if we didn't do anything status quo with taxes, we're only ahead 285,000, or whatever that number was?
Correct.
Okay, and so what we have proposed in the budget, when that new number comes out, we'll know how much we have to take out of reserves. It's gonna deplete that 4 million to see where you're sitting.
Yeah, I want to see that.
Yeah.
So,
Get my head around.
Yeah, I'm just summarizing.
so right now, if you look at what's on the budget as it was, when it was printed,
Yeah, we
We're-
chopped some stuff off.
yeah, we chopped this budget just as is, so, we're over just by $1 million, and if we don't change the tax rate, that would mean that we have to find a little over $700,000 to be able to have the same tax rate.
So we will have 2 more reviews of the budget. There, how do we?
That's what I
All
mean.
hands.
One more.
There'll be one more for
should do it.
sure.
One more should
Yes,
do
because
it.
we have some information
Yeah.
you need before you can make some final decisions,
Okay, no,
but,
Yeah, because we're not gonna be doing this in October.
No.
No.
Because-
No, we do have a target deadline. June the 1st is an unofficial target because our decisions, our tax rates have to be in to Opta because it affects the rest of the county. So we do have a target of June the 1st as the target date to have it finalized so that we can get our tax rate set within that month.
I'd really request that we do it in
Yes.
April, not
Oh,
wait until May.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why we've done a quick turnaround for this one because we needed to get some focus on what is important and, you know,
We need to
take
know
out the
what we
big
do,
projects
yeah.
that we need to go out and then say what really can be done. So, yeah, so we'll continue
No, that's good.
to turn it around as quick as possible.
So I'm assuming we're getting close to wrapping up, but so the one question I just want to ask to our staff members that are here, and it's a question that we always ask during our budget discussions, is in your department, I know we had a lot of discussion about, you know, the roads and the fire and not too much on administration, but is there anything that we haven't talked about or haven't removed or done something to? Is there anything that you believe can be removed from your budget? Coulter, make it a little harder for you because you took a lot of that. So we'll start with the fire chief. Is there anything that you believe that is really above and beyond that's actually needed, something we can actually
Not
take
in
out?
the operating budget, there's nothing in there that,
Mhm.
you know, I think those are all fair numbers. So the only capital item is the truck, and I'm assuming that the figures you're working was 375,000, so
Mhm.
if I can get that down to 300,000, there's $75,000 savings, right? So, and I can do my best to get that.
Get that done.
And it could be as low as 250.
And I think there's
Well,
some
and
merit
then-
in you checking out, like
Mhm.
going and seeing the actual vehicles, and
Yes.
I think that the homework needs to be done.
Yeah.
So,
But also, I feel, don't cheat yourself on 25 or 30,000. I mean, if that's gonna be like,
we have to get a quality
Yeah.
product, yeah, for sure.
you're,
And something that's going to last like 20 years or 15 years, whatever it is.
Trust me, I'm doing a lot of research.
I know, I know you are. It's good.
Okay. And then Kathy, is there anything in our like, administration that we could remove?
We can look at office renovations again and just see if if partitions would work. We can look at that. Yeah, we'll take a look at our budget and.
I don't know if that's really what we want to do, but yeah.
Yeah,
I'm just
and it's
asking,
just some
yeah.
alternatives. Yeah,
Yeah.
if there's anything there.
I'm okay with
yes.
with the door on a wall, cause I can't
Mm.
work with distraction,
Oh,
so,
yeah.
and then it just, from a privacy piece and everything else, I think it's, the office
It's more
doors and walls
professional.
are, exactly. And it's a hell of a lot cheaper than building a new building, so.
And then just another thing that I was thinking of. So Councilor Brody asked the question about, or has made the comment about how much is really too much in reserves to be able to get grants. So I guess Huron County actually used a lot of their reserves this year because they thought, and they believe that they're not getting grants because their reserves were too high. So when I find the report from Cindy Howard, the treasurer at the county, I'll forward that on because they're interested to see what that was and you know what the rationale was. But that thought in Huron County is there right now that they're using the reserves so then they can apply for grants and be able to receive them. But to that point, Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, we have not been doing a great job of actually applying for
No,
grants.
we're doing much better now, but in the past we have not applied for grants because we had that mindset. So we're just applying for whatever comes along that we're available for. If we're eligible, we're going to apply. Yes.
And I gotta think you've gotta have not stale dated financials, if you're asking for money, I gotta think they'd be looking for updated, because how do they assess? So if you're working with 2018 statements for grants in 2020 and 2021, that's old information, that doesn't give them enough to make an assessment on, I don't think, myself, so.
Okay. So is there any other questions at all? So I think what we need now is to set another date.
Back to Huron County.
Yep.
Would that be because the government is looking at possibly making that one-tier government? And so they're looking at, okay,
Spend
we
it
should
or
be
you don't lose it.
spending so we don't lose it?
I don't I've never heard that they're looking at a 1-tier.
Okay, I thought, what's, Woodstock in? Is that?
Oh,
That's
that's
Oxford.
Oxford, that's
And
different.
they've stopped all
They
that.
stopped it.
They've stopped all that months ago. So there's no
But
talk
you
of.
do run the risk when you carry a heavy reserve, if you ever were forced into an amalgamation,
Mhm.
you may not get it spent on your residents, you're absolutely right, so.
And don't get me wrong, I like our healthy reserve, I
Yeah.
just, reserve.
But your point's well made,
Yeah.
like, it'd be nice to know if that's an impediment to getting grants, because you're sitting back, right, so.
Councillor McKim has been talking about that for years, so then Scotchmere can get done.
I voted against the budget 1 year,
Yeah.
and you're witness to it, just because of that.
Yep.
And it was less money then.
Okay, so what's our availability for meetings?
I left my calendar at home, but set the date and I'll check and let you know.
I
You're
guess the
not looking
question
for
would be
another
more
one
so,
this month, are you? How long did they?
really Kathy or Coulter, how long do we?
A little extra time in between might be good this time,
Yeah.
because we do have the RFP that we have to get out
Mhm.
for the fire truck, and Coulter has some work that he needs to get done through Spreet, so, yeah.
I think if you have a bit more time,
Mhm.
because
2
then
weeks
maybe
might be a
that's the
little
final
rushed.
kick, and if we have all
Yes,
the
if we
information,
can get everything
then we might
back.
not have to do it again, right?
Mid-April?
Where are we now? We're the
10th of April?
12th,
10th
so
March right
1,
now.
2,
10th of March,
3,
or
4, 5. If you pick the 16th, that's 5 weeks. Would that be enough time?
10th of April?
The what?
An RFP, takes a little longer though, doesn't it?
Oh, is it? Oh, I'm just thinking, I didn't look
We're
at
just
that.
saying, like,
Just gathering the information, just, it's being worked on now, so it's not gonna take,
Are we
it's
wanting,
not gonna take too much
are we
longer.
wanting it the week prior to Easter or the week after Easter or? So we have a meeting on April 6th.
That'll be the Monday.
If the market rebounds, I'll be away that week. If it doesn't, we're not going away. I say that out loud.
Well, if the market stays down, we might get a better deal on a truck.
Okay, yeah, carry on. Carry on. That's been a long day. Hours are, carry on.
You'll have town council on the 14th?
So I have county council on the 14th, yes.
I haven't filled my monthly minutes. So that's how they meant to.
So I think is this like the 7th? Is that too soon? Is we'll have to have a quick turnaround after another council meeting, but
What did you say?
7th works for me.
Anything can work.
April.
7th, 9th?
I'm not going anywhere.
So that's 1, 2, 3 weeks and a bit. Is that enough time?
I'm good with April.
Yep.
It'll take me a couple weeks to get the RFP done, cause I'm gone most of next week, and then an RFP, once you send it away, I think they have 30 days.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So that's why I was thinking.
No, you don't have to give them 30, we can give them whatever we
You
think.
mean 14
Yeah.
Yeah,
days,
we
whatever.
can, we set the timeline for the RFP, so, but we have to be realistic that they gotta get the answers to the questions, so. We
Yeah,
usually
you should
do,
just tighten it up for 14
we
days
usually
or 10 days
do,
or
we
something.
usually do 15
Do you?
days is pretty standard for our RFPs.
And has any other neighboring fire departments done a tender recently or an RFP for?
Yes.
So
We have
Okay.
templates and we've got,
we can get it done by this week before you leave? No? Okay.
before I leave next week.
So then realistically that won't be back until middle of
But
April.
still, having said that, I mean, still the 3.
3 weeks, you think?
No,
Oh,
it's,
I didn't hear what you said.
So you said you can't get it done this week, you're away next week, so then you start on it the week of the 23rd in March.
I'll get some of it done.
So if get done by say the 26th, 27th, and then you're talking 3 weeks, so it'd be the week of the 13th. So after
Easter Monday.
Easter Monday.
So do you want to
Should
say
we
the
do-
14th? Do you want to?
Would you wait if Monday's and Easter, have an actual full day and do it on
We
like
have
a
a-
Wednesday? Oh, is there an option for you?
Well, if it's a second, yeah.
Wednesday, I have a meeting in the morning.
No, and I'm not available on that day.
So is the Tuesday achievable?
I have county
Tuesday
council
night.
in the afternoon, so it'd either have to be in the morning or in the evening.
I'd like the evening at that time of year, might start.
That would work
Okay.
for you, yeah?
What
Do you wanna
day,
do that?
what day?
14th?
14th?
And what time? No, it's at
No, he's at
evening.
work. Yeah.
Can you have it at 6? Like, would you?
That's fine.
And then if we need to change it, or like to bump it up, or have a closed session for other reasons ahead of that, we.
Yeah, we can add that on.
too. Yeah, okay.
We're doing property
Yes,
stuff.
we
or
would
whatever.
have two council meetings in between there, so.
All right,
Yes.
so
The 16th and the 6th of April, so.
the 20th of April.
Oops.
Yes.
Yes, right.
It's a long day.
So you said the 14th at 6?
Sure.
Okay, we have a motion for that then.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Clark, Councillor Brody, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Okay. Did someone have a running list of what we were actually changing? Or no? Okay, as long as we all know what we decided, that's good.
Kathy's clear.
It's similar neither to,
Got the motion for the RFP.
This is together somehow.
I don't really know what we're doing reserves for.
We'll
Everything
figure
comes
that out.
back. If everyone's good with grants, we can,
Do we wanna have a motion for the grants?
yes.
To approve those.
Can,
Yeah.
as is presented.
Okay, so that's moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Brody, and that's for the approval of,
The grants
The
listed.
Grants as presented.
but that does not include the other considerations, so that's just
For what's
the Strathmore Middlesex General Hospital Foundation, Fort County Health Services, and the Kerwood Adelaide Metcalfe Optimus Club, totaling $18,350.
Well, and there was the two other, the little ones underneath.
So are we doing the business award?
Well, we just hadn't decided on.
Let's see.
if the resolution was that the grants as requested, so we can let those
Okay.
groups know, and then these ones we can discuss further.
Okay.
That the
Grants
grants
as
as
requested.
applied for.
So that was moved and seconded. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, and that's carried. And you're gonna do the closed session for that, and then, yeah, that's all I wrote down. Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll have a motion to adjourn at 8:27. Okay, Deputy Hendricks and Councilor Brody, all those in favor, opposed, and that's carried.